Frasier was my guy.
She's trash! Is Seattle experiencing a Prozac shortage?
Look, I know I'm not the only fan of the mess that is Dr. Frasier Crane, a high-strung radio psychiatrist and star of his own 90s sitcom called, appropriately, Frasier. I see you with your jokes and comics and cartoons, and it's great to know he's still well-loved after so long. But for me and Dr. Crane, it's it's personal. Who is Frasier? An overanalyzing theatre snob with an inferiority/superiority complex, a more legitimately successful younger sibling, runs his own minor personality-based show over a microphone, has crippling insecurities and neurotic self-destructive habits that prevent him from developing a relationship with a woman, folks, friends, compatriots. I don't just love Frasier, I am Frasier. I have lived these moments, I have said these things or reacted this way. He is me. For real.
Musical?
Candide. Yours?
Cats.
Is that bad to believe? Maybe. But aside my usual projection, it's probably down to how well drawn he is. Frasier's such a specific character with a clear voice, and a staggering 264 episodes over 11 years were made on the back of excellent writing and performances to form this practically real person. I assumed growing up the show was just born good. And yet, there was a persistent sense I was missing something, as ghosts emerged from his past to haunt him, like Hamlet in a tie. That's because it didn't start here.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Cheers was another extremely successful sitcom, and a very different kind of show. At the bar where everyone knows your name, and check, viewers tuned in to hang out with their favourite drinking buddies and serial killers who all became household names, and one of them was Frasier Crane, making his debut 3 seasons in. It was a wonderful show, huge part of sitcom history, yada yada yada. You may be thinking, how does this guy, a bit part who came in late, end up becoming the breakout star? Was the potential for greatness that obvious? What person was discovered? What was carried over? And would we really be Frasier fanatics if we didn't overanalyze every season in excruciating detail?
This is great! This is great!
Think of this as an explorative retrospective, a deep dive into Dr. Crane's history, to reminisce about the best of his past, but also to see how it shapes his future. It's a neurotically overanalyzed feature for the ultimate neurotic overanalyzing fool. This is one I've been wanting to do for years. This is Frasier on Cheers.
Everybody have fun tonight. Everybody Wang Chung tonight.
You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Before anyone else, there was Sam Malone. Once a pitcher for the Boston Red Sox, Sam was everyone's friend and hero, a confident womanizer, satirically macho, until things fell apart when one drink became one too many, making reckless decisions as an alcoholic. Luckily, Sam bounced back from rock bottom, and while he never returned to sports, he did hang on to one of those reckless decisions, for what he called sentimental reasons. Maybe it was to prove something to Boston, maybe to himself, maybe just to keep his old coach from going broke. One thing was for certain. Sam was now the owner of a bar called Cheers. This is where the show begins, and things get going almost immediately when a woman walks in by the name of force of habit, Diane Chambers.
What a shame such an astute observer of human nature is stuck behind a bar.
That's what I think.
Diane was everything Sam wasn't. Upper class, educated, self-righteous, and needed everyone to know it. She was a grad student chasing a career in the arts and, having been abandoned by her fiancé, accepted Sam's offer to become a waitress at Cheers, where they drove each other nuts. Sam and Diane were a heck of a thing. She challenged his chauvinism, he was mad he couldn't spell that, but while they always pushed back, they couldn't fight their attraction, and the pair would incessantly flirt and bicker to the delight of the audience and the annoyance of everyone else.
I've never met an intelligent woman that I'd want to date.
On behalf of the intelligent women around the world, may I just say...
The show's creators, director James Burrows and writers Glenn and Les Charles, were inspired by the pairings of classic screwball comedy films, specifically between Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, strong opposites with great chemistry, and pitching it that way to Shelley Long sold her on the show, Hepburn being one of her own It's Me for Real idols.
Oh, I just lost my croissant. Don't write this.
It was a fine setup. She and co-star Ted Danson played off each other effortlessly, as both hoped to change the other, sometimes breaking through, but mostly failing as things got more ridiculously heated. Their aggressive romance became the stuff of legend, the epitome of the classic will they won't they relationship, its influence even spreading into the furthest reaches of space.
This is not Cheers, after all.
I don't know what Cheers is!
Around them were characters with their own baggage. There was the lovable bartender Coach, who had a mind like Silly Putty.
Is there an Uni Pantuso here?
That's you, Coach.
Speaking.
Barmaid Carla Tortelli, who had a chip on her shoulder about the world, and especially Diane.
What you writing, Slats?
My thoughts.
That would explain all the blank pages.
Postman Cliff Clavin, who knew everything about nothing.
The very letters, DNA, are an acronym for the words, dames are not aggressive.
And of course, the barfly everyone was happy to see.
Afternoon, everybody.
Oh, no! How's life treating you, Norm?
He caught me in bed with his wife.
Now and then, others would chime in, a Greek chorus of patrons and guest stars who had their own goings-on, except Paul, who was just Paul. It was a crew of no-hopers and sad sacks who came together to forget their troubles and tolerate each other's existence until closing time, inviting the audience to do the same.
And where better than here to study life in all its many facets? People meet in bars, they part, they rejoice. They come here to be with their own kind. What can I get you?
Where is police? We have lost our luggage.
On occasion, it would be something more, a melancholy tone setting in as the real lives they avoided encroached on the bar, featuring writing and performances that made people realize this was more than a gag-a-minute sitcom.
You have been saying that I'm beautiful ever since I was a very little girl. But look at me. Not as my father, but like you're looking at me for the first time, and please, try to see me as I really am.
Oh my God, I didn't realize how much you look like your mother.
She was really beautiful.
Yes, and so are you. You're the most beautiful kid in the whole world.
Folks began paying attention. Thanks to other network successes and schedule changes, it went from a ratings bomb to a smash hit. And now knowing they were going to be able to provide more, they decided to end its first season with a big move.
You know, I always wanted to pop you one. Maybe this is my lucky day, huh?
You disgust me. I hate you.
Are you as turned on as I am?
More.
Bold though it was to hook 'em up, it was a risk that changed the atmosphere. Season 1 featured more of Sam and Diane getting to know each other within a grounded ensemble comedy, while Season 2 became an encompassing battle to keep a fundamentally difficult relationship together, going to dramatic lengths as they had to admit things weren't working out.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Creatively, it made sense to split them up again, but it presented a new problem to think up something else to keep the romance spicy. So we're told Diane has, after a nervous breakdown, gone to an institution to figure out exactly what went wrong. And someone there, as it turns out, is listening. Sam, without Diane, has returned to drinking, a total wreck, and Coach decides the only way to pull him back is to ask for Diane's help. An agreement is reached, in a very long scene, on the promise he takes advice from someone she knows. Someone, we realise, who's been sitting right there.
Hello, Sam. I'm Dr. Frasier Crane.
It's impossible to watch this knowing what we know now. I just keep looking at him. That smile, that damn smile. Dr. Frasier Crane, a trained psychiatrist, is introduced as Diane's new boyfriend from the institution, having met in the usual way.
I said, who do you want to play it? And they said, John Lithgow. We went to John Lithgow's agents, and they say he's not interested in television, so then we started to audition, and about the third face was was Kelsey's face.
At this point, Kelsey Grammer was hitting 30, having gone through an extremely difficult path to become an actor. He was racking up theatre credits, his latest, the original production of Stephen Sondheim's musical Sunday in the Park with George, alongside lead actor Mandy Patinkin. As it turned out, Mandy was a good friend of Paramount's casting director, and, in conversation discussing the idea of a comedy boyfriend for Cheers, recommended Grammer for the role.
As I read it, I thought, I can play this guy. I'm him. I can do him. And, you know, that was my cockier days.
Physically, it's quite difficult to adjust to young Frasier being the same guy we'll know, not yet transformed into Bob Hope's double, though he does bear a striking resemblance to someone else we'd see much later on. At any rate, it was a strong-jawed look chosen for someone who could prove a threat to Sam, as Diane's ideal.
I am the luckiest person on earth.
The second luckiest. Not here, Diane.
You can tell Frasier's mostly a prop. In step with Cheers' screwball comedy roots, he's the cliched rival keeping the lovers apart, a transatlantic dandy. Not someone they expect you to grow attached to, as he takes on annoying quirks that are supposed to become his thing.
Thanks for the cold one, Sam.
You're welcome, Frasier.
The beer, I mean, not Diane.
It's an improvement on her first fiancé, Sumner Sloan, an older professor taking advantage who wasn't much competition. This is the anti-Sam, a man her age who's a sophisticated and respectful lover of the arts. Everything Diane said she wanted, and to his credit, she seems real into it.
Do you know that there's a Kurosawa film festival playing at Cambridge?
Well, Diane, I'm not really in the mood to go. Kurosawa, you said?
You know, he was certainly well-educated and refined and, I mean, in all essence, you know, he was Diane's male counterpart.
Socially, however, he fits in even less than she does. Compared to the regulars, or downtown working stiffs, he's a well-off, pompous doctor with bad people skills. Hardly a hero. Except to me, anyway.
That shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. That was Poe.
Don't be modest, it was great.
That said, it's significant he begins as an antagonist because it means he starts life on screen as an underdog. Diane clearly still harbors feelings for Sam, leaving Frasier pursuing a doomed relationship used to make another man jealous and serving as the butt of everyone's jokes.
Oh, Diane.
Frasier.
Makes you feel a little sorry for him. And what truly defies expectations is Grammer's performance. It's slightly more nuanced than such a broad role would usually get, serious about Diane, and where even if his thing doesn't always stick, he'll find other ways to get the laughs.
I believe you're being deliberately opaque in a situation where
Frasier, he's making a joke.
Oh, shoot. Once you've been a patient of mine, I'm always there when you... Oh, great. I'll bet this is important.
We're let into the possibility that there's more to Frasier than splitting up Cheers' main couple, including insight into deep family lore. His mother, Hester, makes only one appearance, meeting Diane to offer her approval, and leaves a strong impression.
Stop seeing my son, or as God is my witness, I'll kill you.
It's a funny bit, but this became an opportunity to put some meat on Frasier's character. The first inkling that his approach to women comes from an intense upbringing, Mama Crane laying judgment on every aspect of his life at literal gunpoint. No wonder he's a Freudian. She passes on sometime between the next two seasons, but remains a constant reference in Frasier's life as someone warm and cold in equal measure. More complicated than some would like to remember.
Anytime she ever met anybody, she would always find something to like about him.
Can't stand the picture of you being married to a pseudo-intellectual barmaid. No offense intended.
We eventually see her again on Frasier as Rita Wilson. Sort of. Wilson plays a date of Frasier's who's meant to look like his mother as a young woman. Oh dear God. But in an episode called Don Juan in Hell, the joke is doubled when she returns as the imaginary projection of Hester from his childhood, attempting to capture the original look and performance.
Let's explore the inner recesses of your psyche like we did when you were a boy.
It's a hell of a commitment to detail for what would usually be a throwaway gag, blending her depictions to give us a better idea of where Frasier was coming from. They even kind of look the same, if you squint with both eyes. It cemented the neurotic fun that could be had with the good doctor among the others. We learn he's perpetually been a mark for bullies, and that doesn't stop at Cheers, becoming an obstacle the others try to deal with and divert.
You abandoned Frasier in the woods.
Well, that's another way of putting it, but it doesn't sound as funny that way.
And somehow, he just keeps coming back.
I'm positively hooked on it.
That's the show where Kelsey really exploded, him being made the butt of all, the guys in the bar, and him loving it.
This is part of a plan, and I unwittingly helped you.
Yes.
Frasier, how devious.
That's what guys do, darling. We screw each other to the wall.
The more Frasier became a joke, the more he stepped into the spotlight, the writers continuing to flex his possibilities now they'd seen what he was capable of, even if the rest of the gang didn't want to remember it that way.
What's a snipe hunt?
That's when you take some unsuspecting dope out to bag snipe, which don't exist, and then you ditch them in the woods.
Well, do you have any more of these stories?
Only about 1 million.
Oh, I don't have time for 1 million. Just tell me the 100 worst.
Frasier was defying the purpose he'd been set for, as he pulled in people he didn't expect, and pushed away the person he wanted.
I'm here for you, Sam, and I promise I won't leave until you can deal with this. She doesn't want to go to Europe with me, Sam. She doesn't love me. She's still harboring feelings for you.
By season's end, after much badgering, Diane agrees to take a trip abroad with him. This was partly done to hide Shelley Long's pregnancy. They figured they could shoot scenes of them away from the bar while it was barely noticeable, and then splice those into the episodes later on. Not a problem Rhea faced. Ultimately, it wasn't that contrived.
I think it's part of Sam's grand design to win you back. This is the number where I can be reached, should you be interested in rational discourse. You'll rue the day you did that.
Frasier was getting confrontational, knowing Diane's heart was elsewhere, so sending them off together could only speed up the conflict expected to take shape as we saw the strains of their life alone. Diane wistfully pining after Sam, and Frasier living on pure cope.
It is nearly as effective as more sophisticated techniques cultivated and employed by better educated people with gentler temperaments. Stop it, damn it!
The dilemma was what should happen to him next. He was written to only last the season, but what had emerged was a character as interesting among the cast as Diane, and while we figured he would propose, there was no way she'd say yes.
Why not just get married here in this little town? Right now. Wouldn't that be romantic?
Dan, I love that idea. Let's do it.
Oh, well, shows what I know. I thought this was going to get a lot more complicated for a 2-hour video. What am I supposed to talk about next?
Diane! Don't do this!
Sam?
I'm sorry, Frasier. Diane and I belong together.
See? Everything turned out fine. Frasier, ever patient and understanding, graciously accepts to be forever alone, like a champ.
Frasier, will you forgive me?
You know I will.
You're a good man, Frasier.
I try.
Luckily, Shelley Long had grammar shot before next season, allowing us to follow Sam and Diane's life in a house with a white picket fence where unicorns come into the garden to nibble on the grass as they romp in the fens and spinnies. Yeah, so never happened. Diane didn't go through with the wedding, so racked with indecision over her feelings for Sam, she jilted Frasier at the altar. And it broke him. He'd lost his lover, his practice, and now his mind.
Oh, wait a second. What are you doing? The gun's not even loaded.
Certainly it's loaded.
No, it isn't.
Oh. Of course you know it's not. Because Frasier Crane is a harmless person. He never caused you a moment's concern, not a moment's worry. He was never a threat to your relationship with Diane, and he's not a threat now. Is that it, Sam?
No, it's just the little holes there are empty.
Greater men would have taken this in stride, gone home, learned they'd served their purpose and peaked. Adios. But Frasier was not a greater man. Rather than spell the character's end, this set up decades worth of writing. The pain of Diane's clumsy rejection revealed a bundle of severe emotional issues that had never been dealt with, paying off what we'd seen in those early appearances, and now giving him something to brood on to bring those traits to the surface. We'd established a key beat for this character, someone who appears collected and smart, undermined by his basic, relatable frustrations getting the better of him. A psychiatrist, completely unable to help himself. No way he wasn't coming back. Almost knowing his story isn't done, he refuses to leave, moping and mopping, purely so he can look at Diane and seethe.
When Diane left Sam, and he started drinking again, he was filling the void, and Diane filled her emptiness by toying with and destroying a man who's her cultural and intellectual superior in every way. You see the point I'm trying to make, Woody?
And then he just, vanishes. I'm not sure what happened here. He makes a brief appearance in a Fun Dream episode, but otherwise in a half-season stretch, Frasier doesn't feature, possibly because there were now serious negotiations underway.
It was interesting that early on, the audiences did not like him.
A chunk of the audience felt he was breaking up their favorite couple and sent serious hate mail in response. One guy going up to Grammer and asking if he was, quote, the pin dick who broke up Sam and Diane, in the days before you could at anyone with some fucked up shit. Rumors persisted Shelley Long wasn't happy either.
I'm not always so sure about Diane. Poor thing, I think she had a setback recently when she broke up with Sam.
There were plans to keep her pregnancy part of the show and make Frasier the father, only for Long to say she didn't like the idea of using this, or that it would further break up the Tracy Hepburn dynamic with Sam, Kelsey taking that as her wanting him off the series. This was denied by Shelley and the writers, Grammer even doubting himself on the matter, though there were certainly working tensions as they figured out Diane's now pressurized role.
To her credit, she was defending her character. I think she wanted her character to be in love with Sam Malone.
Whatever the truth, the executives, writers, and cast enjoyed what they were seeing develop, and resolved they'd like to push on and see what else they could come up with, signaling a change in focus for the show's future.
Diane, I've dreamed of this day.
I hope you didn't misinterpret my message as a wish to rekindle our romance.
This is Tuesday, right? Well, we'll see. When I said I dreamed of this day, I meant I dreamt of Tuesday.
Frasier did return, struggling to drop his obsession without much luck, drowning his sorrows instead. But a misguided attempt by Diane to have him analyze Sam for practice gets too real, erupting into another argument, and bringing clarity to Frasier at last.
You took pity on me. You of all people. Two of the most pitiful people I know. You two may not have the courage to face it, but I finally do. Sam and Diane, you are now and have always been hopelessly in, I guess the word for it is love. And unfortunately for you, like it or not, you always will be.
For as much as it was claimed he was hated, the audience seemed to take his side early on, as if he spoke for their and the writers' frustrations. The couple's feud sometimes hid the fact that the show wasn't intended as a relationship drama. They had certainly been the linchpin of its initial success, but Cheers was at its heart an ensemble piece about real-ass-looking people with their own problems, drowned out by their constant noise. Frasier was veering more and more towards that group, talking honestly about how the pair's troubles now seemed overplayed, wanting to be more than their obstacle.
I know! Now you're gonna deny it. Even though it's ludicrously obvious to everyone around you, you two will go on pretending that it's not true because you're emotional infants. You love each other, and you hate each other, and you hate yourselves for loving each other. Well, my dear friends, I want no part of it. It's time I just picked up my life where I left off. It's time to put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So I'll get out of here now so you can just get on with your denial fest.
And this, folks, is where an independent Frasier began.
What do you think about what Frasier said?
Frasier's a pretty sharp guy. Oh, you merry band!
Free of his original purpose, Dr. Crane was going to make something of himself at Cheers, and we'd see that happen through the rest of the season. Perhaps this was helped by another fresh face to start making regular appearances around the same time, as at the end of season 3, actor Nicholas Colasanto had sadly passed away. Coach wasn't bright, but he was convinced of his own nonsense and always eager to help, an endearing character who couldn't be replaced.
Coach, we were gonna kiss.
We were?
They decided not to try.
You won't regret it, Mr. Malone. I love bartending.
Instead, a new character was created, Woody Boyd, played by, funnily enough, Woody Harrelson. He was more of a laid-back country bumpkin who thought the best of everyone, and brought a youthful energy that made him a perfect foil for the worldly Frasier.
I once belonged to that ridiculous profession where pompous intellectuals get together and discuss the illusion that there's something they can do to alter the human situation, and deny that man is condemned to a life of bitterness and despair.
Yeah, but you got your weekends off.
What cemented his place, however, and maybe put Long's role in further jeopardy, was the surprising friendship that began between him and Sam.
We'll be giving both of them a new chance on life there.
By George, Sam.
sometimes out of the mouths of babes.
Oh, let's not talk women now. What do you say, huh?
I think they recognized their shared experience with Diane and how they represented different sides of what she wanted. Combined, they'd be her model boyfriend and our nightmare. But it also meant they complemented each other, realizing in spite of different backgrounds, they had lots in common, as well as things they wanted to improve on. Both listened to other people's problems all day or wanted better luck in love. And when it came to dating, Frasier needed all the help he could get.
I have a feeling that you only brought me to this place to surround yourself with people you know and I don't.
I thought that we might have a drink or two, thereby lowering our inhibitions a bit and enabling us to go back to your place and have a physical encounter of some sort.
Well, we won't.
I appreciate your candor.
No, you don't.
You're right. I feel like striking you.
Now, believe it or not, she wouldn't show up again for the rest of the season. But she's not the only interesting connection.
Candy with an I.
I used to spell it with a Y, but nobody ever took me seriously, so then I switched it to an I. You know, like Gandhi.
Sam, looking to help, recommends Frasier try one of his old girlfriends, played by Jennifer Tilly. She's a carefree girl, willing to rush into a relationship with him at first sight. And if I had a nickel for every time that happened, well, I wouldn't be rich.
I'm a psychiatrist.
You probably got me figured out already.
I haven't even got you on the couch yet.
Oh my God!
I get the feeling that wasn't a coincidence. Tilly serves as Frasier's first frivolous on-screen fling, and on Frasier, she's his penultimate one, almost bookending his dating life, proving a little flexibility in the kind of fun Frasier's looking for.
I don't deserve to put polish on your toenails. Although it was the highlight of breakfast.
He was stepping out, demonstrating his comedic potential away from Diane, putting her in an interesting position.
I think you're doing this to draw me out, to force me to make a stand. Please, tell me if I'm wrong and I'll be forever silent.
You're wrong.
No, I'm not.
The pair, despite not being an item again, still had a great connection, able to get into unique and more intellectually vindictive arguments.
You've been using the word really far too frequently.
Perhaps you should find another tavern in which to bore the life out of the clientele.
And though Diane may not have been Frasier's professional equal, she definitely had more confidence, which produced some fire comebacks.
What's on the agenda tonight? Football. Oh, good Lord. I mean, raw.
Using a colloquialism to ingratiate yourself with the rabble? How very sad. How really very sad.
The team behind Cheers, who had been voracious readers, saw Diane as their way to get in a lot of sharp references from her studies, and Frasier was a chance to go even further.
Surefire jokes about Schopenhauer and Kierkegaard and Pomme de Terre.
This was helped by the addition of new talents, promising writer-producers Peter Casey, David Angel, and David Lee, who shared many of the same sentiments when it came to both characters.
She, like I, is a big intellectual blowhard. Do you know? You know, so a little pretentious and willing to show off what she knew, and you know, that's sort of me in a nutshell. But I also like Frasier for that reason too.
She said contemptuous. Can you believe that?
I thought I'd have a conniption.
It seemed as though they had so much to say, but the trouble was, it wasn't just Frasier Diane was dealing with anymore. New faces popping up and getting more prominent seemed to be pushing her out, and while she was initially protective of him, he was getting along with that group way faster than she ever had, perhaps giving her pause for thought. Not as much pause as me realizing this is Nancy Cartwright.
You have such a beautiful voice.
Guilty as charged.
Here's another odd connection for you.
You're getting dirt on my new Joan and Davids.
Those shoes ruined Frasier Crane Day.
Have you know I spent a bundle on these shoes? They're Joan and David. You named them? Oh, shut up!
The Joan and David was on the other foot when Sam got a new girlfriend, a counselor running for office who a jealous Diane figures isn't right for him, and teams up with Frasier to challenge her by backing another candidate whose reveal, as an Elf fan, nearly killed me. Admittedly, he only agreed to take part to maintain closeness with Diane and hold on to his bitterness. But it's not the last time we'd see Frasier dabble in politics, again running with less conservative picks, and some, coincidentally, also involved with other life forms.
I was abducted by aliens.
Maybe Cheers was an alternate version of Trek after all. Fact is, the healing had begun. He was exploring his potential via new interests and hobbies, starting to date, to make friends and be someone other than the jealous boyfriend, and soon he allowed himself to approach Diane as a person again.
Welcome to the Losers Club, baby.
The pain never goes away, not completely, but Frasier can see she's hurting and doesn't make a joke of it, knowing how real it is, still completely smitten himself.
Don't give up hope. I haven't.
You're a lovely man.
Took some time, but Frasier was, officially, no longer a prop.
Kind of worried that Diane may get hurt.
My God, Sam, that's very noble of you.
No, I mean that I had a dream last night that I killed her. And it felt really good.
Frasier's title card hails his status as a series regular, having randomly appeared in Season 4 for an episode he wasn't even in, and one about Cliff no less. Oy. Main character status meant this was his chance to have a proper effect.
In light of your disposal of him last night, I think it's better that he be left alone right now.
And the audience sounds ready to take it.
Can you imagine how we must feel?
Gee, I'll try.
One thing the writers tap into is how keen he is to listen. I know, it becomes his catchphrase.
I'm listening.
He's not completely sincere about that. Maybe someone should check that license again.
What's with your voice?
Oh, I spent the afternoon screaming at a patient.
What kind of therapy is that?
No, it's not therapy. He burned a hole in my carpet.
But it does seem like an inherent trait, open to hearing other people's problems and trying to offer his frequently unsolicited observations.
She's experiencing denial.
What's that mean, Dr. Crane?
It means that the human mind blocks out that which it cannot emotionally accept.
What's that mean, Dr. Crane?
It means that you don't understand this, and you never will.
From a narrative perspective, it's genius. Through the articulate Frasier, they can establish exposition, or explain to the more plain-speaking characters what their problem is to get an episode moving, showing why he became a therapist to begin with, and that he's probably a good one.
Whose sole purpose is to heal the mind.
The best.
I've got to tell Dr. Judd to keep his windows closed during his depression seminar.
He also tends to give the camera something to do. Don't know if you guys have noticed, but he's like the king of reacting. Whenever we cut away to a reaction shot, it's Frasier. Whenever someone moves to join a conversation, it's Frasier. In some episodes, he barely says anything, but we regularly see him reacting. And from a performance perspective, where you definitely don't want to be upstaging anyone, it's just, he totally does. It's very funny.
Come pie time, he may well have taken you under his wing and launched you into the literary galaxy.
Frasier, you and I are of like mind.
Except, one of us is kidding.
In the foreground, we see him figuring out his dynamic, his need to ingratiate himself now an ongoing activity. It doesn't always go the way he'd like. He'd been charitable to everyone with Diane, but a more bitter Frasier would let his anger slip through the cracks, making any time they undermine him a sledgehammer to his ego.
There are a great many lessons to be learned in defeat. Chief among them is how to lose gracefully.
Checkmate.
This doesn't change in the future either. In fact, losing to Woody at chess probably explains why he takes losing to his non-academic father so badly. He was openly proud of his achievements as a student of both Harvard and Oxford, and would flaunt his connections at the bar, in one instance introducing an old colleague played by John Cleese.
Filled to the brim with girlish glee, three little maids from school.
I'm glad Frasier's love of Gilbert and Sullivan remains consistent, even if it's not for everyone.
On a tree by a river, a little tomtit sang willow, tit willow, tit willow.
As well as contextualizing his past, John's inclusion nods to the writer's influences. Huge fans of the English sitcom Fawlty Towers. Regarded as the godfather of the genre in the UK, the show is often mentioned as a proper successor to the stage tradition of farce. Mannered, class-conscious comedies that rapidly cycle through dramatic contrivances or lies people attempt to stay on top of to keep the status quo, until the efforts reach new ludicrous heights by the end.
Would you care for rats?
Allowing this character into the inner sanctum of Cheers, and through Frasier no less, not so subtly hints at their ambitions towards the kind of humour they wanted to pursue. And it's interesting that, like Frasier, he too speaks about the frustrations of watching the Sam and Diane romance unfold.
Envy them sofa, envy them chair, for you shall never be as cosy as they, for I guarantee that their marriage will be a total, epoch-shattering success, and I stake my life on it!
Frasier's high-status background was having an effect on the show and characters that wasn't anticipated, and the best example can be found in someone else who returns this season, named after a demon goddess, because subtext is for cowards.
Good afternoon, Dr. Crane. Don't you dare.
Lilith was another happy accident. Bebe Neuwirth was coming onto the show as a guest, already an up-and-coming Broadway talent. But her dynamic with Kelsey was so good they decided to scrap Jennifer Tilly's role and try her as a regular. She was described as Frasier's shadow, as smart as him, as blunt as he could be, and even more socially awkward, acting like an automaton.
Frasier's hostility is masking a deep attraction to you.
Thank you, Diane. It's been a long time since I've had such a good laugh.
It turned out very quickly that Lilith wasn't a one-trick personality. Neuwirth was a trained dancer and could unleash that energy from the repressed persona and take everyone by surprise.
Probing deeper and deeper into the patient's psyche. Thrusting over and over.
I took my hair down, came back to work dressed as myself, and they went, whoa! And I think when the producers and the writers saw that, they went, and there's another thing we can do with Lilith.
Gentle stroking of the psyche will bring about a far more and intense release of emotion.
Point well taken.
She wasn't only there to set up Frasier's jokes, she was incredibly funny in her own right, and the two of them turned out to have insane chemistry in a way even the characters on the show found fascinating to watch. Yeah, maybe too much. It was so entertaining it unexpectedly took over the romantic edge that once belonged purely to Sam and Diane, the difference being that they were evenly matched, while in a fateful move by Diane,
Could we borrow a hairpin?
the dominant Doctor is easily determined.
Make no mistake about it, I am going to kiss you. In fact, I'm going to kiss you like you've never...
That difference was best shown in an episode where the two couples go to dinner, compared against one another to bring all of their dramatic potential to light.
He and I were once engaged, so I don't have to worry about you discovering it at some inopportune moment.
Like now, for instance.
This, quite honestly, feels like a prototypical episode of Frasier. Frequent Cheers writer Fief Sutton brought a new level of dialogue to the show by way of these characters, going through the kinds of trials and tribulations you'd expect in a one-act Broadway play. And it's telling that when Sam and Diane watch the madness unfold, they do so almost in silence, unable to contribute, as if they're watching from another sitcom dimension.
And if Sam were out of the picture, you'd throw me over and run back to her, wouldn't you?
I don't love her anymore.
You switch your passions on and off very quickly, Dr. Crane.
I do not.
Then you do still love her.
Well, I never did.
You were going to marry her.
Well, maybe I just thought I loved her.
How do I know you don't just think you love me?
Well, I don't. I mean, I didn't. I never. I will not be grilled like a common criminal.
The characters on Cheers find it difficult to change, which is fine. Static characters are a great cornerstone of comedy, but Frasier and Lilith couldn't help but change. Too interesting to not explore. I think their effect here was what revealed to the writers they were onto something good, and that Sam and Diane had run out of gas.
Frasier was a convenient dalliance on my part at a time when I needed someone, anyone. I'm sorry it was him.
So, essentially, Frasier was a toy you played with briefly and then threw away.
Well, it wasn't that bad.
A fellow human being whose emotions you twisted for your own satisfaction with no consideration for his feelings.
Frasier had some fun. We would speak nothing but French on Sundays. Frasier, you had fun.
Diane, I never had a whit of fun, especially on Sundays. And the only thing more egregious than your French pronunciation is your syntax.
Shelley Long and everyone else knew they had exhausted her options. They brought Diane and Sam together so incredibly soon, and had to find progressively inane ways to keep the tension around them going. The creators certainly didn't want her to go, but Shelley was indulged at length to discuss and prepare for her role, to the point where it became disruptive to the cast and crew's time, though, despite any rumours, they felt her efforts paid off.
Clean up the quotes first.
Let's clean up the quotes.
Let's clean up the quotes. We sat down and she said, so what's it like to work with Shelley Long? And I went, I can't think of one nice thing to say about Shelley Long. Ha ha ha. And then, aren't I clever? And then I started to talk about Shelley Long and about the nice things I can say about Shelley Long and da-da-da-da-da-da. So...
They cut out the good
Sure.
and left in the bad.
Yeah.
Perhaps this was an inevitable side effect of her diminishing interest in where things were headed, keen to get back to other pursuits in her life.
I was ready to devote more time to my family, and I already had my contract with Disney by that point.
And stung by the loss of Colasanto.
Nick and Nick's character cared about me, Shelley and me, Diane. And that was part of the dynamic on and off the set. And it was very hard to finish that year without him.
Taking all this into account, she decided to make a move. So, at season 5's end, Diane would try to marry Sam.
I'm convinced that the words I do are not in the woman's vocabulary.
I wonder if it's a reach to mention this framing.
Do you agree that we shouldn't get married?
I do.
Alas, it's not to be. A fake finale was shot with an audience where the wedding actually took place to prevent leaks, but a happier ending would have robbed us of an affecting departure, Sam knowing it wouldn't be fair on her.
Or maybe one of us will decide they want something else.
None of those things will happen. I'll be back here. I will. I'll see you in 6 months.
Have a good life.
In his final moments, he wonders about how life could have worked out differently, offering closure of another kind.
I did miss them. I missed them very much. Working at Cheers was a dream come true. It truly was. And it was one of the most satisfying experiences of my life. So, yes, I missed it, but I never regretted that decision.
Diane has the bar.
Perhaps something that's bothered me is the conversation around Diane feeling a tad revisionist. I know, a bit rich, given my age. Folks seem to overcompensate in defending the character, that she was this misunderstood, wonderfully educated counterpoint with the show's quality dying when she left, and I can't help but not vibe with that. Not only because most comments sound like they're coming from lovesick boomers. Oh, we're out here saying anything, huh?
I'm opinionated, I'm stubborn, I am smug.
A little louder, they can't hear you in the back room.
But I also disagree with the opposite, that she was an annoying, monstrous narcissist who had no redeeming qualities. Long's up and down career confirming they were better without. I don't vibe with that either. As usual, I have another takeaway.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I've found. Was blind, but now I see.
Obviously, Diane was an iconic, fantastically funny character, played amazingly by Shelley Long, whose talents were evident here. She was a great contrast, delivering to the back row while the others played to the cheap seats, the only actress who could have played that role. She made what would often be an insufferable, condescending character into someone you liked, sincere in her optimism, standing up for what she believed in, turning moments on a dime, the closest thing to a moral center.
It was maybe the worst night of my life. Believe it or not, I actually thought about throwing myself in the lake. But then I looked down at this cat in my lap and I thought, well, who would take care of Elizabeth?
Without Diane, there would be no series, and the cast and crew have stood by her on that.
Shelley was just, dazzling, I think, as that character.
Yeah, I never thought she got the credit that she deserved.
Yeah. Without Shelley Long, that show doesn't get to year 2.
Yeah.
That's how brilliant she was.
Still, had she remained, the show may not have lasted. Repetitive plots, the characters' mismatched romance dragging into forced nastiness, or worse, a purely domestic drama, this was planned, could have killed Cheers. Shelley's choice to go likely saving it a second time.
I know that you're all novices to the opera, so I'd like to give you a little background.
Above all, I believe the tendency to romanticize her as a misunderstood princess in a world of trolls diminishes what was so brilliant about Diane. Because, while she presented herself as better than the others, she was, deep down, just as bad. Diane was desperate to be liked, but also desperate to be seen as more. She was smart, but would exaggerate. Her pretensions towards high art and appearing cultured masks for her need for attention. However, when Frasier and Lilith entered the picture, people who actually were the kind of accomplished folks she tried to pass herself off as, she found herself struggling to compete, in ways that led to some of her best moments, her crowning masterpiece being her own original art film. Your move, Criterion. Some felt she was becoming more caricatured, not as sharply written to make her leaving less painful, with her best traits given to Frasier. But to me, that ignores that this is who she'd always been, naively coasting on inexperience in all matters since the start.
Why am I sitting on a lizard?
Season 5 was merely emphasizing the text beneath those stories, an inevitable exploration of the real Diane, who was getting upset at being left behind, who wanted to escape and become the things she thought she deserved to be, and couldn't. It was heartbreaking, and I think Frasier got it, not far from who she was at all.
As the only two entities of any discernible intellect in this place, it is our duty to set an example for the others.
You're only saying that because you know I'm smarter than you are.
Frasier was willing to go with the flow, not having a spine, but knew it was harder for Diane, that what others saw as narcissistic pretensions were basic desires for respect he understood. Even though she'd hurt him badly, whenever she was vulnerable, he couldn't help but respond, recognizing her struggle to be accepted, that maybe saving her would save himself.
She thinks her teacher's going to show up tonight. What are we going to tell her?
We're not going to tell her anything. Madame Ligova is going to write her a splendid analysis.
You see, I think that's why she got to him the most. Of all the women in Frasier's life, Diane was the one he thought he wanted. Everything about who they were sounded like they should be perfect for each other. He was written to be her ideal, and she just didn't want him. I think he felt like, well, if not her, then who? Who the hell is right for me? But the lesson was getting past that, to both realize there was no perfect match that could solve their issues and satisfy their egos, that they had to find self-respect first.
I love you guys!
Though she never said it, I think Diane felt complicated about Frasier, how to even begin helping. Wanting him to be happy, but too wrapped up in resolving her own inadequacies, on another path to happiness. Diane was an excellent character, but it was because of her flaws. She wasn't perfect, which is what made her so perfect. There is something of a happy ending. In spite of the contentions, Kelsey never felt right about the way things turned out, and, to show there were no hard feelings, invited Shelley to be part of his new show. She agreed, and Frasier is all the better for it.
Frasier?
Diane featured on the series 3 times, long speaking positively of the experience as an actor and a fan.
To pick at each other so specifically, to be so close in terms of, in the same profession, for heaven's sakes, and using the same ridiculous jargons, that just makes me laugh.
Once, she appeared as a joke, another time in the Don Juan episode Within His Mind. But between those, the two met in real time, in an episode originally planned for her return on Cheers.
To this day, there is a sucking chest wound where once there dwelled a heart. Diane!
It's just as well they held off. Frasier was now enormously popular, and this could easily have been an episode where she's eclipsed by his success, but they play it brilliantly, with Diane holding all the cards.
White wine, Diane. I'm pouring an 85 Montrachet La Guiche I purchased at auction.
Oh, I always keep a bottle of that open myself.
Shelley performs at her best, completely unapproachable in an almost manic version of her usual facade, years in the making.
I used to have this facial tic. Started meditating right away.
Was it about your play?
There it goes again!
Of course, it's manic pixie music to Frasier's ears, told she needs help producing her new play, after things fell through in Hollywood. The old feelings rushing back as he imagines he can be her knight in shining Armani, until he catches a rehearsal.
We always wanted the book that she wrote was going to be turned into a TV series about her experiences in the bar. And I think we ended up never doing it on Cheers, but on Frasier, she'd written a play. And there was thinly veiled characters.
I pour beer down people's throats.
I drink it.
Big oof. She'd been sitting on this one.
Come on, what kind of a greeting is that? When Norm comes in, you all yell, "Norm!" Make a big fuss over him.
Evening, people.
Forcing Frasier to watch a twee theatrical take on his life by someone who still can't see past her neediness is the most Frasier way to express the problem, exploding into one of his top 5 freakouts. Hell, maybe number 1.
But I did leave you at the altar.
No, you know I hold no ill will toward you for that. I just don't know what I'm supposed to be feeling. I may be able to illuminate that for you. This woman has reached into your chest, plucked out your heart, and thrown it to her hellhounds for a chew toy. Because no matter how far you go, no matter how many years you let pass, You will never be completely out of reach of those bony fingers. So drink hearty, Franklin, and laugh. Because you have made a pact with Beelzebub, and her name is Marianne!
Regardless, their final moments are a tribute to the depth of the characters they created on Cheers, acknowledging the hurt she caused, but also, perhaps for the first time, appreciating her impact on who Frasier had become, the blueprint for his success. Diane was a terminally bittersweet character, challenging a world she could never conquer, but always making her mark. The matured dialogue of his show giving her a chance to prove it, within the frame of their past.
How she'll never forget him. How do you suppose Franklin would respond to that?
Until we meet again. Probably certain that they never would.
But mightn't there be a part of him that hopes they would?
Oh, I suppose so, yes. All right, then don't have them sum things up. Just let them say their goodbyes, and if their paths happen to cross again, so be it. Goodbye, Diane.
Goodbye, Frasier.
Her exit on Cheers was terrific, but this felt complete. Not only showing Frasier's effect on her life, but her effect on his. On all of us.
Force of habit.
I've been doing it all week.
Frasier buddy, I feel ya, but she just wasn't the one. Even if she did like Rodgers and Hart. So few do.
Falling in love with love is falling for make-believe.
Can you make that stop?
I'm sorry, it's stuck in my head. Sam still owned the bar. He wasn't out circumnavigating the globe. Yonder sat Diane with a book. Norman Cliff were permanent fixtures in this place. God, how I miss those hail fellows well met. Oh, death and life, the days that are no more. Who said that?
You said what?
Oh, death and life, the days that are no more.
You did.
No, you see, I mean, who said it first?
You said it both times.
You know, you're right, Woody. Some things never change.
Yeah, he'll be fine. Things have turned around. Frasier continuing to show up at Cheers and getting through the worst of the post-Diane cope. He's become more accepting, no longer a third wheel as he gets readily involved in what's happening at the bar. We know more about what makes him tick, the kind of gags that work best.
You see, America's wits dulled and her morals abrogated by this opiate of the asses.
I was Sigmund Freud's love child.
No!
We even get a sample of his taste in art, fairly consistent with what he'd have on his own show. Can confirm, it brings the room together. But there was still a Shelley-shaped void to be filled in what was a very fast turnaround, introducing the last of the major regulars. Kirstie Alley was an interesting person, and dealt a difficult hand. Whoever served as a replacement was going to have a tough time convincing the public she was worth investing in. The writers knew they couldn't just recreate Diane again. They needed to do something different. Kirstie certainly gave them that.
She walked into the first table reading wearing a blonde wig, looking and dressed identically like Diane Chambers. She didn't sneak in timidly.
Allegedly, on that first day, she stood to the side of the stage listening to the audience ask question after question to the warm-up guy about Shelley, acting like they'd lose interest without her. Then someone asked, "Do the actors ever wear the same clothes twice?" Kirstie, bursting through the door, yelled, "Shelley never did."
After I came out, and they were nice to me. Yeah, you know. Big deal, we're not gonna like you no matter what you do.
With Cheers bought from under Sam's nose by a holding company, it was decided a new manager should be put in charge to make sure they were getting their money's worth, a dynamic originally considered for Diane, and that manager would be Rebecca Howe.
Where's Dave?
Dave?
My moosehead.
I set him free. If he really loves you, he'll come back.
If Diane was Hepburn, then Rebecca was Bacall, the frostier presence at the bar, keeping Sam off balance with her smouldering put-downs and raised eyebrows. She was intended to be more distant, only interested in her own success, mostly as a way for the writers to hold her back and figure her out as they went, taking even the tiniest ad-lib as a sign.
I locked myself out. No, I didn't.
It would be a while before she developed, but Rebecca slowly managed to make herself known as Cheers' new top girl. And Frasier wouldn't shut up about her.
You see, I haven't been with all that many women. Especially ones with a caboose like that.
His selfish qualities are pushed as the great changeover sees Frasier's most endemic trait emerge. His insecurity.
You couldn't have chosen a more opportune moment to declare your feelings. I find myself free to ask you if you'd like to join me for dinner.
Who are you?
Things with Lilith were getting serious, and in spite of a lot of great on-screen moments, he was immediately looking to Rebecca as the way out, hanging around her whenever he could, plain creepin'. It was partly encouraged by the bar. Smarty Pants Diane's absence had all eyes turned back to him as the sole nerd, easily guilted by the resident boys club into bad ideas, and made to think Rebecca could be his chance to start over as the cool kid if he pursued her over buttoned-up Lilith. It was in keeping with his history of being bullied and needing to be part of the in-crowd, a history that would only be elaborated on in his own show, like when he reunites with head cheerleader Lorna Lanley, who, depending on the day, I might even say was his best girlfriend.
Put your brother on the phone! Oh, this is nice.
The worry is staying with Lilith might close off his possibilities, but he's also afraid that if he loses her, he'll lose it all. Now, Lilith has her own insecurities, but acts on them very differently.
You broke off our relationship for the possibility of a relationship? A mere fantasy? How flattering.
On numerous occasions, she calls his bluffs by confronting the issue directly, forcing him to humiliate himself. And when they fall out over his insistence that she should sign a prenup, she takes the fight to a whole new level.
$12.50 going for the last time.
I bid $2,000.
Sold!
Sam's amazing here. He's like, bro, I got this. Don't you worry, just follow my lead and I'll, wait. Ooh, damn.
Aha! I found you!
Lilith is proactive in fighting for Frasier, never one for any BS, and wanting to prove her value as someone exciting and dynamic as any other woman. Certainly proved it to Sam. Fish in a barrel, really. But her calculated revenge would, on occasion, backfire.
Can't be engaged to you, Frasier, because I'm marrying Randy here. If anyone wants to get us a wedding gift, his butt is this size.
A bargain struck before their impending marriage sees Lilith end up making a fool of herself, convinced she's proven herself a hypocrite. Only what she doesn't know is that Frasier's bachelor party didn't go the way he planned either.
Karen!
Dr. Crane!
You know each other? She's one of my patients. Karen, I hope you're doing this for the money, because this certainly won't square things between you and your father.
These are two people who think they aren't enough, not only to each other, but anyone else. Both are used to being on the outside, and worry they're settling rather than exploring the lives they haven't let themselves live. Trouble is, every time they do explore, they fall apart, and run back to each other for safety. Some of this is avoidance. As psychiatrists, they try to distance themselves from their uncomfortable feelings through analysis, making it difficult to express themselves emotionally, and torturing each other in frustration, a problem that would only go on. But there is, behind that, sincere affection, preferring to be together than alone. In the first two instances, it seems Frasier is just apologizing to Lilith out of fear, saying anything to avoid rejection. But when she's the one feeling rejected, Frasier proves himself by standing by and refusing to let her feel that pain.
Lilith, I want to marry you anyway.
You do?
Absolutely.
For the rest of my life, I will always cherish those words. Lilith, I want to marry you anyway.
After worrying if marriage will end everything, they realize it's opened another door.
Don't throw up on me in the cab.
You know who became Diane? Frasier.
Yeah.
Frasier did all the upscale jokes.
Yeah.
And Bibi and Lilith Sterling.
It's amazing how fast Lilith became a beloved regular. Her value was caught pretty quickly, and she'd make many more appearances this season, getting past her awkward meeting with Rebecca and becoming close friends with the other women on the cast. Carla and Diane didn't get along, so there were only a few episodes where they had much to do with each other. But Lilith, Carla, and Rebecca would get together and be given comic business as funny as anything happening with the boys.
Carla, hold on to your hat. The gals are here.
Eddie, get the gun.
I think that changed the dynamics of the show into something else, and calmed everyone down, which maybe wouldn't have happened if Frasier hadn't been introduced into the ecosystem. It's kinda like Yellowstone. You know, when they put the predators back in the food chain and it's revitalized the entire landscape. True story.
This show is really popular, really successful, and they've brought this new girl in, Kirstie Alley, and I thought, this has the potential to be one of the greatest shows ever now, because midstream, you can't tell where it's going. That, I think, that sort of creative jolt that it got that made it another show, a new show, and it was great.
In the end, Rebecca ends up getting closer to Frasier too, talking to him and confiding her problems, and he takes her concerns seriously.
It's just that I'm really frustrated because I can't seem to kick this habit.
May I suggest something that seems to have worked for many of my patients?
Changing doctors?
The friendship shows a more equal footing between all the characters, no longer in their separate groups, even with Sam trying to decide if he wants to make Rebecca his next date or if he wants another friend to talk to.
Freedom.
You want want to go get a cup of coffee?
Look, he knew he wasn't competition for Mickey's Riz, okay? That guy's a movie star.
What does that guy have that I don't have? Well, at the moment, Rebecca.
Season 6 isn't dense in Frasier vibes overall, but the few central episodes he gets are extremely formative, and the continuing effect he had on the show helped carry it through a Diane-less year. The fear it would fail was easing as their popularity climbed up rather than down, providing a lot of hope for Frasier's future.
We're going down! I gotta get out of here! Mommy! Mommy!
I'll tell you what else it provided. There's an episode where one of Carla's sons gets a job as a short order cook at a place called
Burger.
which happens to have a branch in Seattle.
Burger.
Nothing else to add? I just thought that was interesting. Aren't you glad I'm here to tell you this? Yes.
Yeah!
A curious thing happens. Frasier and Lilith hire Norm to decorate their apartment and are pleased with the job, showing it off to their yuppie friends who adore it and want to hire him, on a hasty assumption.
Well, it's not you, Norm, it's them.
Yeah?
They're narrow-minded, trend-sucking dilettantes who insist that their chefs be French, you know, that their mechanics be German, and that their designers be stylish.
Did I tell you that last night I programmed myself to dream about your space?
It might be a cheap gag now, God knows Cheers has so many, and wasn't the first time Cheers dealt with the subject, but the way it was handled here set a precedent for an ongoing Frasier conversation about how stylish he could get.
That does it. We're finding another motel.
It's possible to view the way gays were characterized on Cheers and Frasier unfavorably by modern standards, but this was at a significant time when that conversation was changing on TV.
I'll show you how good looking she is. Barry, what do you think of this babe?
I'd switch.
His world was upper-class arts, and that was a world that intersected with a section of the gay community. The first hint of that given here, and the attitudes a commentary on what they were experiencing. The joke concerning Norm is, after all, that Frasier's friend's belief is absurd, and forcing people to act in ways that are equally absurd. The kind of social situation that would develop into the comic language of his own sitcom.
We came in here tonight to try to fix Norman up with another man.
Naughty.
Naughty.
There's a block of episodes fans refer to as the gay ones. Seriously. Written, directed, and acted in by gay artists, some of whom began on Cheers. Many of those episodes considered the best. They reflected the reality of how people were reacting, and presented those characters in many divergent ways, playing most of them, if you will, straight.
You're cute when you're nervous.
My friends call me Marty.
Then Marty it is.
Don't be jealous, Niles. It's not how it looks.
David Hyde Pierce participated in many, straight on the show, yet gay in real life, and provided an extra authenticity everyone was having fun with.
Well, maybe I can catch it this weekend with Mel.
Oh, and who's Mel?
Damn you and your jealous questions! You don't own me! It's over, you hear me? Over! And I'm keeping the jewelry.
I'd have killed to see him in those Christopher Durang plays.
I'm begging you, please take me home!
It was never malicious. It was commenting on an upper middle class need to overcorrect, to seem more accepting, to mask worries about keeping status, and led to hands down one of the funniest episodes.
All my life, I have dreamed of being half of a power couple, and now I finally am.
Gay panic implies nefarious intent, but Frasier's struggle with the question went beyond more derogatory versions of "ooh, cooties." The main object was to prey on his personal feelings. His whole life he'd been mocked for not being stereotypically masculine, despite wanting the kind of things he felt straight men wanted, and at least being gay would have given him one reason he could come to terms with.
I was sensitive as a child. I didn't go in for sports. God, it's every cliche in the book. You refused to take me to see West Side Story on my 8th birthday.
Well, because of the gangs. That's scary for kids.
Even gangs that dance?
Especially gangs that dance.
He genuinely accepts as a psychiatrist pretty much everyone's story, and while he's got some very naive and funny views on what people think,
you have no idea how difficult it is for a black woman in a white man's world.
Like anyone, he was seeking self-acceptance, and the truth of that and those around him was portrayed as totally sincere.
Sometimes it's hard to humor your kids, but
it's what we do. We're fathers.
Exactly.
I don't think that exists without the level of comfort around Frasier's world that was being established on Cheers, though hiring decorators based on this assumption didn't work out for Lilith.
Stan was a contractor we'd hired to expand our master bedroom. It's ironic, isn't it? No sooner do I get the closet of my dreams than my husband comes out of it.
An eye patch.
It doesn't leave much to the imagination here, does it, Fraser? Not that I was imagining anything.
If I had to use a word to describe him this season, it would be comfortable. Frasier and Lilith are at peak domestic life, not taking too much action away from the bar while presenting themselves as a believable pair, and Lilith exploring different facets of herself inside and outside the marriage.
Total control of woman over machine. The speed, the power, the ecstasy. I was jazzed. First, he insists on calling me mommy. Then it's bath time, one of my favorites. Followed by my tucking him into bed and singing All the Pretty Little Horses. After that, we make love until the windows rattle.
I mean, that's the kind of thing that could, give somebody serious mental damage. Am I right, Lilith?
No, it was funny, Sam.
Another Rodgers and Hart fan. Good job.
Stay, little Valentine, stay. Each day is...
Shut up! She was becoming as iconic as her husband, with not one, but 2 episodes of the girls in her outfit this season. You have to wonder if they just wanted to try it for themselves.
Ready to sock it to the old boys network? I am. Too much inflection. I am. I'm proud of you.
Another development was on the horizon.
I'll never be a father. End of discussion.
Frasier, I'm pregnant.
I'm gonna be a daddy.
A pregnancy soon takes shape, and being Lilith, she plays it up at every opportunity, high on living while completely inhuman.
Lay your hands upon me, everyone. I am life. My man's seed is nourished within me. Touch my breasts, my friend. I am lactating.
You can see how this might have worked with Sam and Diane, but the road to parenthood is simply funnier with this couple's bizarre approach, and less intrusive to the overall structure of the show, making every mistake figuring it out here and now.
I wouldn't kick her off the couch for eating crackers,
Frasier, I can hear you, and so can your unborn child.
Some we find out later.
Remember when he was a baby, the bottle at the end of the maze?
No, I kind of regret doing that.
Frasier's so comfy, there's a debate as to if there's 2 of him. The Frasier at Cheers is a family fella who likes to hang out with the boys, crack a cold one and watch the sports.
Frasier, he nearly cut Curry in half there.
Oh, ticky-tack, it's a wussy call. Let the guys play the game.
The one in Frasier avoids such activities, and would rather go to an opera or watch How Green Is My Valley. Thing is, that doesn't seem like a contradiction, but a consistent internal struggle.
No, it's time I realized that there are 2 Frasier Cranes. Frasier, the prospective groom who sent Karen on her way, and Frasier, the pig who wanted to see her shake her nonnies.
Even including continuity errors, I think Frasier, trying to fit in, becomes what whoever he's closest to at the time needs him to be. When at the bar, he's fairly relaxed, and open to what the others want to do.
Race to the corner and back, the winner goes to the game! False start! False start!
When at home with his brother or his curmudgeonly dad, he tenses up, and the weird habits and eccentricities come flying out. Honestly, it's not unheard of for him to backpedal either. Have you forgotten the name of this episode? His fear of being left out seems to be a common denominator, and it makes a lot of canonical glitches feel like he's saying whatever will get him by. Sometimes dogs weren't a problem, sometimes they were. Maybe it was just specific dogs. There's a few other familiar ideas that cross timelines. Frasier makes a deal to dress up as a clown for a party thrown by Rebecca, which I suppose earns me another 2 nickels. Kinda suits him too well. Oh dear.
Minky, do your act.
I don't have an act, I'm a psychiatrist.
One of my favourite things is how Frasier introduces himself.
I'm really Dr. Frasier Crane.
It's a little thing, but it keeps coming up in different forms as part of what makes him ripe for comedy. A high-status guy trying to save face in low-status situations, and always like an inept James Bond.
I'm Dr. Frasier Crane. I'm Dr. Frasier Crane.
I'm Dr. Frasier Crane.
Another episode had Sam open up about a relationship he had with a piano teacher. Interesting, because we'd learned Frasier had a similar experience, and told someone at the bar, who wrote a book.
I owe you everything!
On reflection, it sort of changes how I view this take.
The piano never laughs, never stomps out of the room and refuses to let you play again for 3 days. Well, I'm off to Lilith.
There's a bit where Frasier rips his shirt off. Just kept happening.
I'm not wearing any pants!
Felt like there was this great dichotomy, because Grammer became a broad guy, so you got this sensitive, educated man every now and then going beast mode, making this casting perfect. See? He played Beast People. David voiced Fish People. Oh right, speaking of...
Very clearly asked for a whisper of cinnamon. He's given me a full-throated shout.
I've forgotten what a weird little person you are.
I feel these developing differences helped better establish his brother Niles on the spin-off, Hyde Pierce's casting as an uncanny twin of young Grammer making a point.
Sheila Guthrie came in one day and with a picture of David Hyde Pierce. And she said, look at this actor. Doesn't he look like Kelsey did 10 years ago?
As with Lilith, Niles was a shadow, representing a Frasier who never left his high society bubble, often making the same kind of commentary and social mistakes.
You're never going to get well until you get over this paranoia. And he says to me, I was afraid you'd say that.
He was having dinner with his wife, and he meant to say, pass the salt, but instead he said, you've ruined my life, you blood-sucking shrew.
You have to remember that Frasier was the contrast at the bar. Now a leading man, recapturing his original values allowed Niles to contrast him, maintaining how much Frasier had developed, alleviating the joke of them being so alike.
Man, this is freaky. He looks just like you did when I met you. What happened, huh?
Wasn't exactly a health club you were running there, Sam.
Frasier was created by Angel, Casey, and Lee, and their genius was they took an actor, Kelsey Grammer, and made him Sam Malone, and made David Hyde Pierce Frasier. Right. That's how good an actor Kelsey is, that he can go from kind of a strange dude on Cheers to the center of a show.
Also offered different mental and physical advantages, the Freudian stacked with attack stats, and the Jungian maxing defense. A bit of an unfair advantage.
You're climbing in my crib and jumping on me! You stole my mommy!
Differentiation was possible thanks to the clearer picture that had emerged on Cheers. This wasn't solely a character that was developing. It was a style of humour, the situations he'd get in, the things we'd come to recognise, slipping into a familiar score that would eventually go from a solo to a duet. A slightly torturous metaphor there. I do apologise. This essay's having quite the effect on me.
That's where I got that idea to stencil a grape arbor on our Welch dresser.
I'm a teamster compared to you.
I think that's everything. Oh, it's Bree! Look, she's right there! Okay, so, Rebecca's sister shows up. Sure, played by Marsha Cross, better known for her role years later as the ever-efficient Bree Vanderkamp on Desperate Housewives.
People thought that your stepfather was a wife killer, then your sister takes up with her history teacher, and now we're supposed to parade a little bastard up and down the street. We might as well sit on the porch and play banjos.
I mention this because, after crossing my fingers real hard, she has a short interaction with Frasier, making her the third of Housewives' main cast to do so.
And say, if you would, I know where you live. And I'm going to get you.
No, for real. On a Frasier episode, he dated Susan Meyer's actress, Terry Hatcher, playing the niece of his dad's bestie, using him subconsciously for therapy.
Am I crazy, or are you breaking up with me again?
Well, they're not completely unrelated.
Then Felicity Huffman has an entire arc in the final seasons as a new member of his radio station, whom he has an extremely troubled working relationship with, using their first fight as a way to send up one of Cheers' most famous moments.
Harridan!
Know-it-all!
Shrew!
Snob!
Are you as turned on as I am?
What? No!
Huffman even attributed her time on Frasier as part of what landed her the role of Lynette on Housewives, itself featuring quite a few actors and writers from both. What can I tell you? Small world, small industry.
The scarce-bearded Caesar hath not sent you his powerful mandate. Performed, or else we damn thee.
Your performance was aggressively bad.
Look, I know only I care. It's just cool to me to see Frasier hung out with a third of the Housewives cast. Sans Eva Longoria, who was probably not in a position to be here.
She wasn't born yet!
Sorry to interrupt. I'm looking for Rebecca Howe.
Robin Colcourt.
Yes, as a matter of fact, I am.
In the first couple episodes, billionaire playboy Robin Colcord bursts onto the scene with plans involving Cheers to turn a fat profit. Rebecca, seeing him as her shot to become a wealthy wife and business owner who can leave the bar behind, throws herself at him. And Sam, thinking this is a bad idea, finds himself subtly threatened in return. For the first time in a long time, we have a clear arc that will have to be resolved. And it's rather good. The attempt at this kind of story with Rebecca's previous rich guy, Evan Drake, hadn't paid off, appearing too infrequently without much of a character to go on, stretching out punchlines that, well, I guess being so stretched makes them funny to me now, actually.
You lied to me, Norm. No.
Oh, well, that explains a lot. That's funny. Robin was the real deal. What made him a great Cheers villain was how he affected them as an ensemble. In threatening the bar, he brought the cast together, having traits that dealt with each. His money and power attracting Rebecca, his manipulation offending Sam, takes one to know one, and as he was played by classic Shakespearean actor Roger Rees, he could even rival Frasier.
It serves it in the
office of a wall or as a moat defensive to a house against the envy of less happier lands. This blessed plot, this earth, this realm, this England.
And if my nature wants the germ that grows towering to heaven like the mountain pine, or like the oak sheltering multitudes, I stand, not high it may be, but alone.
Thank you, Mr. Colcord, Dr. Crane, but I think I'm just going to go with what I'd planned.
His arc shaped the entire season, getting us invested, but also showing how broken Backseat Becky really was.
To strive, to achieve, I was taught to never, ever settle.
Sweetheart, how do you explain working in this bar for the last 3 years?
Has it been that long?
If the first 2 seasons were the height of Diane's era, 8 and 9 were Rebecca's. Her previous arcs didn't really work, and I know plenty of people who'll swear by her never working, but I don't think the show or character would have continued if that had been the case. They found what made Rebecca as much of a loser as the others, her selfish instincts and terrible flaws constantly pulling her up short, a satire of the times with an industrious businesswoman who couldn't get her life together.
You heard me, buddy. I want you.
You're kind of repulsive right now.
You can't take it?
Perhaps your mileage may vary on how effectively she was utilised, and the show certainly wasn't better without Diane, that was special. But it felt differently good, having found her voice within the ensemble antics that crept back in through the door Frasier opened.
In these dreams is somebody that I definitely should not be dreaming about.
Because even though he's a sexy and successful doctor, he's also happily married and about to be a father.
Darling, you're the love of my life, but even I don't have erotic dreams about you.
We may not have gotten a character like Robin otherwise, Reese delivering some of the finest Shakespeare readings I've seen on mainstream television.
Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a stay.
Maybe this is my own revisionism at play, but if Rebecca didn't reach her full potential,
I only loved you for your money.
At least she still makes me laugh.
It's entirely possible that Rebecca may grow tired of Robin all on her own. And on the other hand, as one who was cuckolded by a lover deeply trusted, the longer led on, the harder the fall. I'm just not sure that Rebecca can be as strong and forgiving as I was when that bitch Diane dumped me.
Frasier ends up incredibly busy with others through the season, dealing with Sam trying to outthink Robin, but also helping Lilith prepare for the arrival of their child, to the best of his ability.
Whoa! I parked my car in that damn red zone 1,000 times and picked today to throw my car away.
And, a hijink or two later, Frederick Gaylord Crane, is born. Frederick goes on to become a key part of the Frasier dynasty, charted from the Byzantine to Visigoth era. And what's nice is we do see and mention he exists often. Easy for some shows to forget, because filming babies is hard work. Through Frederick, we discover Lilith is Jewish, determined to invite everyone to her newborn son's bris.
Don't touch my baby! Got that out of my system, now we can proceed.
It's a fact they'd stick with years later, as we would see Freddie grow up with the entire family attending his bar mitzvah, in an episode where Frasier gets to bless his dear son. In Klingon.
Po'ok. Lord Wile Ko'o.
Oh, that was lovely.
Big fan of this one.
Can you forgive me?
Yeah, for everything but naming me Gaylord.
The consistency around Frasier's family life isn't entirely spot on, though, and one moment this season lives in infamy.
Dad was a scientist, huh?
No, he was a white rat.
Obviously, there was never a long-term plan for Frasier to have an on-screen father, blatantly retconned when they came up with his show, but I believe you can read this as a lie.
My father wanted me to go into psychology, he insisted on it. At the time, I hated him for it. And he died before I had a chance to realize that he was right, and I never got to tell him.
Yeah, I know, it's not the intent, but Frasier hesitates, almost presenting a hilariously ideal version of a dad that couldn't exist to keep up appearances. I don't think it's out of character for Frasier to dress up the truth that way, to impress a version of himself to the others, and thank God, because it makes this joke even better.
What did he tell you about me, Sam?
He told me you were dead.
Dead? Well, we had an argument.
He told me he was a research scientist.
You were dead. What did it matter?
One thing besides being fun that episode got to do, which I liked, was there were a lot of inconsistencies between Cheers and Frasier.
Yes, there were.
And I think we cleaned up,
We
or
did
you
most
cleaned
of
up
them.
every single
Yes,
one of them.
yes,
You
yeah.
said your father was dead. I was mad at him.
Side note, this episode also features Lisa Kudrow, playing an actor friend of Woody's. Lisa was originally cast to be on Frasier as his on-air producer and friend, Roz. The network liked her audition, but in rehearsal everyone found she was way too underpowered, and let her go before the pilot, the role going to Perry Gilpin, who was way OP.
Freaks! Freaks on line 1, freaks on line 2, freaks everywhere!
Look it up. Roz was another industrious woman trying to manage her life, Rebecca feeling like a template.
You know how at the beginning you're trying to figure out your character, and Jimmy goes, well, what are you going to do? And I was like, well, and Kelsey goes, oh, I wish Kirsty was here.
But unlike Rebecca, she was as invested in the job as she was in the idea of success, managing to best Frasier, her boss, through her command of the business, always able to pop his ego. A shame for Lisa, but judging by what she got instead, I doubt there were many complaints. Maybe when Paul Rudd did this. Funny though, I'd have done it. Frasier's integration to the ensemble sees him more frequently taking up their offers, and making choices that are psychologically fascinating.
I'll be the race car, though. No, I am always the race car. I'm the race car. Would a good boy do this? I imagine I'm Dr. Freud and I'm back in Vienna, hobnobbing with the great minds of the era, exchanging quips with Jung. Yeah, before I know it, the hour's up. I've discovered I haven't even listened to a single thing the patient's been saying.
We see he's good at darts.
I'm ready for a game of darts, if anybody's man enough.
Backs up at least one claim he's made since.
I might have been a dart boy in that bar in Boston.
But he remains an advisory touchstone in their more trying moments, causing a few of his own.
You see, some people hold in their grief for literally years and years, and all they accomplish is to prolong the grief, casting a pall over their own remaining days on this earth. Oh, Mommy, why you?
Carla was a great contrast for Frasier, a working-class mother of millions, unafraid to get her hands dirty, who would bully him and bully others with him in equal measure, bonding as fellow Diane survivalists. But a major thing they never agreed on was, surprise, surprise, the supernatural.
That's a premonition dream. That means it's really gonna happen.
Oh, Carla, that's an old wives' tale.
I'm an old wife.
Carla made claims in the past about having psychic beliefs, and of her trust in personal psychic confidant Madame Lazara, which Frasier found total humbug. So we get a whole episode where the two of them explore that in greater detail.
No, Carla, that's Lilith.
I figure he tolerated this long enough under the assumption it wasn't going to be a huge part of his life. So imagine the horror years later, when he hires his father, a physical therapist from Manchester, allegedly, Daphne Moon, who is, quote,
a bit psychic.
She would also become something of a partner in crime, another working-class contrast sometimes assisting with their mutual interests, though her secrets were possibly scarier. Little pieces that in any other sitcom would be balled up and trashed are, perhaps not intentionally, becoming the building blocks for Frasier's future interactions, putting extra interest in how they begin here.
Well, before you know it, this woman will be holding your hand once a week, charging you $100 an hour, and filling your mind with all sorts of confusing jargon.
And how is that different from you?
Well, I can prescribe drugs.
By now, the characters become one of the gang, the lines bouncing off them effortlessly.
What was it like to be alive during the 1960s?
Well, I don't remember much, Woody. I was too busy taming the West.
Everyone in the bar is like a well-oiled machine, aware of what each other can do, and working together with a level of continued enthusiasm I think they were once worried would be gone.
The whole point is, honey.
I'm sorry, Carla. I should have warned you.
How's the toe, Dr. Crane?
Well, not so good, Woody, thanks.
Of all the characters, though, it's Sam he continues to have the closest rapport with.
I don't think I want to be sitting in that audience.
Oh, what? Is your masculinity threatened by an audience full of women, huh?
No, it's not that.
No, please. I don't want to be the only boy.
As mentioned, they bonded early on, and something you can only get on Cheers is Frasier having a best friend he shares similar thoughts with, compared to Roz, whose friendship had its own flavour. Sam couldn't be close with Woody or Cliff or Norm the same way. They were never competition, but Frasier was someone with a real life who could talk seriously about his problems, particularly about Rebecca.
Your dreams are trying to tell you about something too frightening for your waking life.
Like what?
You care about Rebecca.
Oh, come on, Frasier. You know me. How can I care about her? We haven't done the main thing I care about.
Forgive me, Sam. I forgot about your high moral standards.
Sam was also Frasier's way of vicariously enjoying what he never had, living on the inside of his perspective as one of the jocks and trying to measure up, most of the time. One episode sees Lilith promoting a book she's written about the kind of men women like, pitting Sam and Frasier against each other. Sam unfortunately gets all the attention, typical. But fair play, you know, he sticks up for his bro, a true king.
How many of us would like to sleep with Sam? Yeah! How many of you would like to sleep with Frasier?
What's interesting is how this has the couple trying to find their way back to each other, hearing how their marriage fulfills them, in contrast with Sam.
If caring for the one you love, if caring for your children, if paying attention to your career and home, if these things be dull, then may I be the dullest man who ever lived.
You are, Frasier, you are.
Danson once commented that his young son would call his character Sam alone, and how he felt that might be the point. Someone who is looking to fill a void, if not through womanizing and alcoholism, then more positively through friendship with folks like Frasier. He argued to Frasier once that he shouldn't marry Lilith, live the free and easy single life. But now he was asking himself, against his friend's progress, if that was the right answer, a question that would come up frequently from now on.
Yeah, maybe I'm not as young as I used to be, and maybe I did blow my life savings, and maybe this job doesn't pay that much, and maybe I don't have a family or any future to look forward to. But at least...
What, Sam?
At least I'm happy.
I'm personally grateful there was so much of that friendship to enjoy, because as nice as it was to see them reunite on Frasier, more than Woody, the episode just wasn't as good as their closeness on Cheers, experiencing all sorts of trials as a team. Both men carried darkness they shrugged off with their usual jokes, and sometimes drove each other mad with their differences, but together, they could discover meaning in their lives that wasn't there before. From rivals in love to the best of pals.
I only joke with you, Sam, because I love you.
Well, I didn't know you were joking.
Well, I didn't know I loved you.
Another reason to thank Diane.
It's all right for a man to cry, you know?
You're sitting in the back with the windows open, Frasier.
Death is an earthly scientific passage predicted by either massive physical injury or progressive bodily deterioration. There is as little validity in a supposed death dream as there is in the cliched image of death itself as a grim, bloodless ghoul whose bony finger reaches out to tap you on the shoulder when your number's up.
Frasier, it's time to go.
Season 9 continues 8's streak with a couple new additions, including a new owner for Melville's restaurant upstairs, undead wizard John Hill.
Sam!
Who, in one episode, hires a character we know very well, but have never actually met.
Where is she working?
Vera.
Norm was a regular guy who worked a typical job and wanted to get away from his responsibilities, including his oft-mentioned wife, Vera, and while we heard her and got glimpses of her existing, we never saw her properly. It became a powerful running gag, occasionally even turned on its ear when Norm stuck up for his wife and marriage, giving George Wendt plenty to work on. Why do I mention this? Because Frasier took that idea and turbocharged it.
Maris and I rented the video. I don't mind telling you, we pushed our beds together that night.
Niles is married to another unseen woman, the frighteningly wealthy Maris, and unlike Vera, she's never on screen at all, except that one time, but was talked about repeatedly.
Then as a visual reminder never to let herself go again, she had this tie made for me out of the legs of her fat pants. Thank you. Her little quadriceps are so tight she's incapable of straddling anything larger than a border collie.
I see her coat on the hat rack.
Is the hat rack moving?
The closest we ever got to an idea of how she looked, outside of a dog, was when Niles met his second wife Mel, a Maris 2.0, falling for the same traits and ending up in another hellish marriage.
Oh, he's wonderful.
Yes.
The joke evolved into so much more. Maris became the focus of major arcs as Niles discovered what he actually wanted out of life. Spoilers, it was Daphne, and even of some key emotional moments. She was a device that became a part of the show's appeal, and while they attempted to avoid the trick they pulled with Vera, her effectiveness still earned her the credit for why Maris came to be.
They didn't want her to become like Norm's wife, so they thought, well, sometime we'll just have her show up. But they had such a good time writing her. They realized, well, this is too much fun, so we're just going to keep at it. And so, for all of our sake, she never showed up.
Truthfully, Cheers was a chance to try a lot of tricks to enhance Kelsey's performance, which absolutely fueled the writer's enthusiasm, never tiring of his ability to deliver put-downs with biting fluency.
The beauty of private education, Sam, is that they're able to weed out the unacceptable lowlifes. I just pray I'm not one of them.
What's the matter with public school? I went to public school.
I love you, Cliff. Don't ever change.
I mentioned before that one of the gifts of writing for him was how his heightened dialogue could help move a story along or wink at the audience. Yet sometimes there's a difficulty when the others don't know what he's talking about, unable to match his humour and elaborate on a joke the way the writers may have wanted.
Surely you know it. It's great expectations. Pip, Miss Havisham, Magwitch, and 4 pizza-loving turtles who practice martial arts in the sewer.
A lot of people don't realize that was a comic book first.
If they didn't get his reference, then the buck would stop at that being a withering put-down, or a complete tangent. Though that could be funny too.
An Apache attack chopper hovered above the guillotine, pumping hot lead into the crowd. It is a far, far better thing I do than I have ever done. It is a far, far better butt-kicking I give.
Lilith could not only further the discussion, she could challenge him on it.
Sigmund Freud might suggest that your aversion to vegetables stems from some early childhood trauma.
Honestly, Frasier, you must be the last psychiatrist on Earth who hasn't abandoned Sigmund Freud's theories.
What are you saying?
Merely that his theories are outdated, sexist superstitions, unsupported by a shred of clinical evidence.
You're drunk.
Diane had known a lot of Frasier's points of reference, but Lilith was in his profession, and it gave greater rise to the kind of back and forths that would be writ large across the spin-off.
Or maybe the reason he doesn't like vegetables is because they remind him of his mother. Ooh.
It wasn't all jokes either. The Sterling-Crane marriage kept having more to say, dramatic opportunities reaching new heights this season with a standout episode called Rat Girl.
That rat was the envy of others.
You know, that's true, but I got over it.
Lilith's lab rat has passed, and in mourning, she started carrying the body, which Frasier obviously has opinions on, and the sparks keep flying from there.
He looks just like Whitey.
Who's Whitey?
Oh, he was my favorite dead rat that this bastard took and threw in the trash! Oh, why don't you just bite the heads off these birds while you're at it, Dr. Death?
The season was approaching some cartoonier plots, and you know, dead rat worship is up there. But the performances and choices made by the characters were far from two-dimensional. The rat was a cover for unspoken tensions about their continuing difficulties communicating their emotions, and Frasier unwilling to accept this was okay.
I can't believe that you're willing to destroy our marriage all because of your childish refusal to accept the death of an animal.
The very fact that you think of Whitey as an animal proves that we are completely incompatible.
But he was an animal!
It's another interesting parallel. Frasier dislikes the idea of having to compete with a rat for his wife's affection, wouldn't we all? And finds it a problem completely unique to Lilith. Years later, we discover she wasn't the only woman in his life to love rats. In fact, he's closer to them than he ever knew.
Frasier died this morning. I never would have guessed that my heart could ache so over the death of my beloved lab rat. You know what this means? My mother named us after rodents.
It wasn't completely out of line for Frasier to bemoan Lilith's oddness, if a touch hypocritical. And he'd sometimes wonder if perhaps another woman would be less difficult. But difficulty would follow Frasier long into the future in his dealings with other, more typical women. We see him project more of his own insecurities onto her through this season, which were tolerated as long as she wanted to be with him, and the moments of doubt on her part were increasing.
There's nobody more pathetic than us in the whole world.
A back rub, a handshake, blow me a kiss.
We're not Frasier. We're not Frasier. We're not Frasier.
It's an illustration of both Kelsey Grammer and Bebe Neuwirth's skills as actors, longtime performers who knew their way around a stage. Sorry. Both were Broadway vets who knew how to keep up the energy of a big, funny show, while playing the characters truthfully, qualities shared by their many future co-stars, often hired from the stage first. The writers weren't afraid to go big because they knew the actors would make those moments work, to turn otherwise more cartoonish stuff into something that came from a believable place.
Do not touch those scissors to that car!
I gotta do it, Frasier.
You do not! Yes, I am never stepping foot in this bar again. I close the iron door upon you.
They didn't need to speak in a naturalistic way or do real things to seem relatable. They just had to commit to what felt right to the characters. And they did, making this bizarre couple shine in performances that could be surprisingly moving.
Autumn in New York. What makes it seem so exciting? Autumn in New York. It spells the thrill of first nighting.
It was a lovely honeymoon, wasn't it?
I bought this piano with my gold card.
They'd also, as Broadway folk, carve a colossal slice of ham.
I used to sing standards a lot on the set of Cheers because it's just the kind of hairpin I am. I'd walk in and sing, "Oh, the good life," and sort of, take off on that because, life is good.
Kelsey's singing was a great asset, and the karaoke machine became a straight two-day chance for Frasier to regale the bar. In this sweater, no less. Brave.
Hey there, who? You with the stars in your eyes. Are you talking to me?
It's a dangerous combination. A karaoke machine and an obsessive personality whose parents used to play Broadway cast albums to drown out their lovemaking.
His stellar voice sets the writers thinking about an episode where he'd host a radio show, reborn as his job on the sequel and presenting a conflict between the desire to help or entertain. Singing was a crucial layer to that vanity, a look-at-me skill he'd whip out to get the attention he felt he deserved, taking any opportunity to bust open those pipes and vamp.
She's such a groovy lady. She makes my heart go hidey-hatey. I know I could be so in love. Congratulations. Something pure, something la-la-la. Let's all go to a taco show.
Even sang the closing theme.
Hey, baby, I hear the blues are calling. Tossed salads and scrambled eggs. Quite stylish.
Give Kelsey a mic and he was away. He's off. You'll never get him back now.
Isn't it romantic? Moving shadows make the oldest magic word.
Hell, it could even be dangerous. This Rodgers and Hart classic becoming Frasier's weapon to embarrass a rival. Stone cold murder.
Isn't it romantic?
I guess they liked this one. Guess they liked a lot of show tunes.
I hear singing and there's no one there. I smell blossoms, but the trees are bare.
It was incredibly memorable seeing this become a staple of his personality, but it's a shame we couldn't do the same for Lilith. If you wanted to hear her, you had to come to Cheers.
You don't need analyzing, it's not so surprising that you feel very strange.
Look who thinks she's Edie Gourmet.
Always leave them wanting more.
The Frasier family unit offered more opportunities rather than less, performed by two greats as an always watchable pair, who acted as the core relationship on the show for years, continuing to develop together. There's plenty they get wrong, but when they're this good at showing how, it's hard not to enjoy the results.
Well, I thought the place had a lot to offer.
Oh, please. He'll never learn to speak in this environment.
Afternoon, everybody.
They also became the turning point of the season finale.
But I can still see the kid.
Sam gets attached to Freddie after taking part in some babysitting antics, without Tom Selleck this time, and uses it as an excuse to intrude on Frasier's personal life, the dynamics suddenly shifting.
Look, this is my house, my child, and my wife, who, thanks to you, I don't even have time to make love to in the morning.
I thought you said...
All right, I'm raving!
I didn't know I liked kids before.
But you like kids so much, why don't you get one of your own? Oh, Sam. Look, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's right.
You know I love you. I think you're one of the greatest guys in the world. It's just a little bit early on a Saturday morning to lose the love of your child.
Seeing Sam on the back foot with Frasier is a new feeling that demonstrates Danson's own skill, another great comedic talent whose role in the show was changing. He'd been more grounded in the first season, as a smooth guy who knew how to lead, and now he was more broadly dumb compared to the responsible Frasier.
Blimey, there's a lot of trash on the ground, isn't there? Well, I'll just have to impale it and flush it down the loo.
I don't think it was because he was written worse. He was just desperately trying to avoid responsibility, knowing he was getting older and lacking the meaning in his life Frasier had found, addressed in quieter moments.
You know, I've been playing around all my life, and I don't know, maybe I'm missing something.
Have you thought about getting a dog?
He could see the problems, he just didn't know how to deal with them, not without debating it with Elvis in a dream. Hey, we've all been there.
Just excuse me, man. I gotta go back and frolic on the beach or jump in a stock car race or something. I don't know what they got me doing on this one.
Just had a conversation with Elvis Presley.
Well, Sam, I've had 4 or 5 patients that have had the same experience. I'll simply tell you what I told them. The man is dead.
For better or worse, Frasier had changed how characters were able to present their stories, and Sam would experience exactly that change with Rebecca.
I'm gonna be a mommy.
You better be right, Elvis.
What's him?
I Are you sure you're ready for this?
Well, don't I look ready?
Maybe I'm thrown off by the coat rack.
Sam and Rebecca's plans for children was probably not the right way to go. They never worked as a couple, their chemistry stronger as friends, and the writers clearly recognised that in scrapping the story. However, the way they scrapped it made for one of the better episodes. Sure, it's funny, Sam addressing his conscience and realising, hey, this being a dad thing, maybe it's not for me.
Hey everybody, I'm little Sammy Malone, and my dad was a major league pitcher, and he didn't love my mother!
And yet, it's how he comes to that decision that lands.
Sam? What's happening?
Seen a couple years, Dad.
Sam?
Cheers was often accused of being bawdier in its later years, but there were plenty of moments where they brought introspection, particularly through the lens of Frasier's growth as a family man. It was the way Sam was now seeing the world, reconsidering his situation, and beginning to wonder where he was going to find real love.
Then they'll place a tourniquet here, exposing a vein. Exposing a vein. Lilith, exactly how do you work?
After 5 seasons, Lilith finally gets her title card, and like her husband, it's aces. I was a fan of how these caught the spirit of the characters. You knew exactly who they were and what they were getting at beyond the credits. It set the tone for the audience that this was more than a timely comedy about the 80s, rooted in something universal to how people have gathered together for decades, and suiting the show's classic comedy origins around the time that the turn of the century had been in cinematic vogue. All of Diane's outfits make sense now. Apparently, my dad's favourite bit every week was seeing this fella at the end. Just a normal man. That communal nature is accentuated by the live audience's reaction. Canned laughter sucks, but live laughter's pretty nice. Stage acting feeding off an audience reaction that Cheers was getting in spades. The rowdy nature of the show begging for a live response, unlike Cliff's stand-up.
Anybody have a chance to call a TV repairman lately? What's up with that?
It helped that the chosen plots provided great comedic opportunities that echo into the next millennium for Frasier.
Well, I'm Dante Gabriel Rossetti!
Hey, you're alright, kid.
I tried to explain to Frederick what would happen if one were really bitten by a radioactive spider, but he just cried.
Halloween has always provided good sitcom fodder, and Cheers was no different, either in costumes that let Frasier and Lilith display their literary knowledge, or the ongoing feud with Gary's Old Town Tavern leading to this mad prank gone wrong. Jesus. Both are the kind of thing we'd see on his show, and while some of it's typical stuff, it gave some comedic synergy. Frasier using the more cerebral exploration of its characters to refine those kinds of stories, and learning from whatever worked as they delineated his style of humor.
Sometimes you get up on that high horse he is.
High horse? Well, I never.
You guys want to yell at me some more, or do you want to make the breakfast buffet?
Well, naturally, the buffet.
I'm gonna be a psychic. I see you as a young boy reading all those books and not having any friends.
This one line in particular caught me off guard.
May I see you in the kitchen, darling?
A commonly used Frasier device to get everyone up to speed.
Frasier, may I see you in the kitchen? May I see you in the kitchen? Frasier, may I see you in the kitchen? Frasier, what are you doing in the kitchen?
You just asked to see me.
Ah, so you haven't gone deaf.
There was actually another spin-off to feature Dr. Crane beforehand. Lee, Casey, and Angel wanted to set out and create their own sitcom, having seen a spin-off already fail about Carla's family, the Tortellis, and looking to fail again with Wings. I joke, of course. Wings was a moderate success, and allowed the trio to better understand the art of showrunning, the network mandating crossovers with several Cheers characters to boost interest, including Frasier. All canonical, by the way.
Hurry it up there, Phil. I gotta get up early and pack for my weekend in Nantucket.
Little pleasure trip, huh?
No, Lilith's coming.
It's a fairly simple setup. Frasier getting everyone to take part in a pretty terrible self-help seminar.
See it, be it, see it.
While Lilith sits in a corner and is funny.
Is it just the t-shirts, or are you selling the hats and whistles too?
You need a degree to blow the whistle.
Grammer had such a good time making this that he approached the team to come up with his next project after Cheers, the first step towards a Frasier-centric production.
This was not my fault.
If my look is accusatory, it's strictly habit.
Pride would cometh before a fall, however, as another episode presented a hugely consequential Crane moment, one that was, to put it in complex psychoanalytical terms, cringe.
Who would you like to see more than anyone else on your second birthday?
Oh, Sam, you got tickets to the Nanny G concert, the 1992 Tickle Tummy Tour.
Frasier has talked before about his past in med school, trying new lifestyles and getting tied up in hippie culture.
I'm not going to wear a crystal or dissolve herbs under my tongue or listen to some aging hippie playing the whale flute. That's not why I went to college, although when I went to college I did all those things.
But there was someone there he met he totally forgot to mention.
Nanette Gootsman. Who? My first wife.
Who?
Now all grown up and played by Emma Thompson, who was a huge Cheers fan, Nanette has become Nanny G, clearly inspired by the likes of Barney and The Big Comfy Couch Show, and who's definitely moved on.
Shake your hand. You and I. Oh my God.
Don't you want to shake my hand?
It was only a short appearance, but it was another relationship that defined his flaws. Two superficially different people who deep down were exactly the same. Frasier's professional appearance hid selfish impulses and at times poor emotional control on the level of a child. Nanette's child-friendly act is a front for her own impulses, which are a bit more than friendly.
Lilith is not a huggy person.
I know someone who could never get enough huggins.
Well.
She was stuck in the past, trying to drag him back with her, and no effort was made to pretend otherwise.
Frasier, I've never stopped loving you.
Well, maybe this'll help.
More to the point, she had been hidden. Lilith was lied to about Diane, and here Frasier was again, hiding a whole marriage even we didn't know about. They barely get a chance to discuss it, instead using the opportunity to get a thumbs up from Sam.
Today, right now, this exact moment, I'm the happiest man on earth.
I don't think it's a coincidence the next episode begins Frasier's beard era, sprouting from pure confidence, but also maybe to cover for the fact that this, for him, was very bad. The wheels were now turning in Lilith's head, that if he lied about his most serious partners, what else was he hiding?
I just didn't think it was relevant to our lives today.
Frasier, I know why you didn't tell me. You didn't tell me because you're a craven coward.
You know me so well, it's frightening.
It was a difficult question in a season where Lilith was otherwise very deeply a part of Cheers. She was taking more of Frasier's role in offering advice to the others, getting comic B-plots and exploring her own stories, and in between were flashes of uncertainty as to where she fit in the big picture, what it is about her Frasier values.
Your hair is so gorgeous.
My face is beautiful, my hair is gorgeous. What's next? I have a cute little caboose?
Earlier in the season, we had heard more about how Lilith was feeling, how lonely she'd been in her effort to be a responsible person. Frasier kept saying yes to fun or bad ideas, and she kept saying no, and it felt like that disconnect was starting to break things up bit by bit.
I'm somewhat off-putting to most people. No, it's true. I don't have many friends. I've never been very good at making friends.
It's interesting, people say stuff about her, and it actually, kind of hurts my feelings sometimes, the things that they say, because to me, she really broke my heart. Because I saw her as someone who just was very awkward being around people. She understood all about the psychology of people, but she just couldn't be with them.
Her patience was coming to an end. But it was far from the end for Nanette.
That person's not wearing shoes. She's going to get hookworm.
In the Don Juan episode of Frasier, again, the mental impression of a teenaged Nanette teams up with Lilith, Diane, and Hester to haunt him, though she's the one he takes the least seriously.
There's no such thing as fate.
If that were true, there'd be no such thing as astrology.
Always thought this lady was kind of funny. Where is she? Pull one out.
Physical and intellectual exhaustion that seems to overcome those of us who are, let's say, no longer 20.
Where things kick into high gear, though, is in Frasier's final season, 12 years later, when he again comes across Nanny G, now played by Laurie Metcalf. And has anything changed?
Peekaboo! Peekaboo! Peekaboo!
It had to happen. Frasier still hadn't figured out how to manage a relationship, and Nanette was back to put temptation in his path at his most vulnerable, trapped in her weird girl-woman phase.
Do you have any idea what it's like to play the same character for 20 years?
I saw the Cheers episode much later and was thrilled to discover there had been more of Nanny G to laugh at, but it can't be half as thrilling as it was to the Cheers audience who got reintroduced to her a decade ahead, pulling him into another situation that goes horribly, horribly wrong.
Dear God, my clothes!
Oh, God! Oh, hi!
I ate treats. Last week I found a pizza and a chimpanzee named Fred. So kids, what say? We see what we find today in Nanny's messy bed.
Nothing could have prepared us for the returning Nanny G show, now on a huge budget, about to introduce its newest cast member with a Harvard and Oxford degree.
A new baby brother!
I'll never get this moment back. I won't know how I felt before it. From what I've heard, the studio audience was laughing so hard they had to turn them down in the edit. Don't blame them. Love it.
Wow! We were feeling sad, now we're feeling snappy. We were hopping mad, now we're hopping happy.
It was the ultimate Freudian punishment. For years, Frasier has kept so many secrets in the hope of childishly being able to have everything at once. And all it's done is unveiled what that makes him. A big baby. Lilith would be proud.
Hoppity hop, and soon you'll make a new friend.
You had to be there.
Situations like Nanette were driving towards the creator's influences. As mentioned, the writers had an interest in farces like Fawlty Towers, the original plan for Cheers to be set in a hotel, before realising their script's action kept drifting towards the bar. Farce tends to work best when it runs on a sense of urgency in class-conscious settings, and while we got close within the bar, there weren't many episodes that followed strict conventions, until Woody gets married.
It's hard for me to get sentimental over a simple greeting card.
What'd you write? May you never forget the way your hearts leapt up when first you gazed into each other's eyes.
Oh, God, Lilith, I still remember.
Woody had been dating the equally oblivious Kelly, an uptown rich girl, and the pair were often advised by Frasier when not fighting off the other low-key best character.
I'm going to steal your girlfriend. I'm going to steal your girlfriend. France has won! France has won!
There's something you never hear.
This got increasingly serious. They'd written a song.
Kelly, 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 Kelly.
And paid off their coupling in the finale, a mighty two-parter that allowed the writers a crack at a proper farce.
The minister is dead.
Oh!
What are you doing, Sam?
Ooh! Use some of your natural talents to entertain people.
Oh my God, someone died, didn't they?
All the best tricks are in this one. We've got dead bodies. We've got people hiding. We've got singing distractions. Like all of Fawlty was put in a blender and given a healthy dose of Lilith.
When you're smiling.
You can tell the cast are having a wonderful time working together and doing great bits of business, not unlike the best episodes of Frasier.
Miles, all those eels coming. I'm just trimming them now.
Oh, heaven's sakes!
By then, Burroughs and the Charles brothers had read Joe Keenan's farcical novel My Blue Heaven and approached him to write for the spin-off, leading to similarly excellent setups as the Crane brothers' ill-fated plans and lies saw them humiliated time and time again.
Jesus!
Cute but stupid!
Where are you?
I was at the movies.
We plan many new and exciting innovations in the weeks to come.
The interest in pursuing that is realised here first, a rehearsal for the type of show Frasier would develop into, and helped greatly by the fact he'd been created to allow for exactly this kind of stuff.
Well, I picked up a smattering during med school, but it's been so long, I did recognize the word mutilate.
This isn't the last time he'd deal with a sword-fighting German either, even if he decides to leave the translating up to someone else. Can't blame him though. The confidence on display this late sometimes threatened to throw everyone off balance, but it verified there was plenty to work with, offering lessons for subsequent productions. The Frasier character was now in high regard among the team, a unique language forming around him justifying his use in any given situation, which is just as well as this one was nearly over.
Now, if we can get the body in the wine cellar and Frasier to fix Uncle Roger and Rebecca to fix the cake and Lilith to entertain the guest and Cliffy to fix Woody's pants, then we'll be all set.
The body seems to have fallen off the dumbwaiter.
Oh, gee. Just when everything was going so well. Oh my God.
It's not a typically sunny opening. Rebecca makes a terrible mistake, and the first person to help is Frasier, trying to keep the lines of communication open.
That unless you tell him your guilt will get progressively worse, you'll get the cold sweats, insomnia, nervousness. Suddenly one morning you'll wake up and you'll be paralyzed from fear and guilt.
I can live with that.
It doesn't end well.
You tired of screwing up your own life? You start to pick on mine? You know, of all the stupid things you've done in your useless life, this is your masterpiece.
Sam, it was an accident.
She had it coming.
Nobody had that coming.
While stark, the season opener sets a more personal mood that would echo where things would end, exemplifying how close the group has gotten and the impact they have on each other's lives. Yes, Frasier's advice revealed a harsh reality, but it's one nobody else was going to help deal with, one Rebecca and Sam needed to address.
You said some things today that you cannot take back, and you really hurt me. And I know that what I did was terrible, but what you did was worse because you did it on purpose. I don't want to ever see you or this bar again. Goodbye.
Do you want your job back?
I really do.
If they can beat that, they'll be ready for anything that follows.
Just the thought of helping my fellow man gave me a sense of purpose, a mission in life. Oh, surprise, surprise, Mrs. Davis. I had a bad childhood. Join the club, sister.
Signs are good so close to the end, entirely consistent with everything we've learned, and with no upcoming contradictions for what. Oh no, Frasier, don't look at it. Frasier, don't! It's worth remembering television used to be more disposable. With less emphasis on continuity or a smaller pool of actors on weekly shows that ran forever, it wasn't uncommon to see them double up on roles for a series, sometimes more than once. And in this case, it led to something better. John Mahoney won the role of a sleazy ad man writing jingles for the bar by chance when another actor pulled out. And with such fun on set, Grammer personally called to ask if he wanted to come and play his dad on his new show. Mahoney accepted, and we all know how that turned out.
Well, I had plans too, you know. And this may come as a shock to you, sonny boy, but one of them wasn't living with you.
Martin Crane kicked off Frasier's pilot as the stubborn old man he was coming back to. In the absence of Sam, he was a more extreme version of their divide. Cultural opposites, realizing how much they actually connect and mean to each other. A dynamic that remained incredibly strong over 10 years.
Buongiorno! French pants.
I sense a real battle of wits shaping up here.
Oh, night when Christ was born. A star is born! Oh, no! Bring it home now!
It was probably a big help for Kelsey Grammer too. Suffering through serious problems that took place through Cheers, comments were often made about his substance abuse and how it could make filming difficult. An intervention staged on Cheers having only helped temporarily. But another was tried on Frasier, Mahoney one of the many there to help, taking much stronger effect. They remained close up until his death, and all because he played a weird piano man on Cheers.
Thank you, Frasier, for, well, you know.
It's an inconsistency we benefited from, and the only other one we would experience again. Hell.
There are no easy answers.
Well, not for me, there aren't.
This was part of another story where Frasier pursues politics. Maybe a little closer to the fella we would come to meet in a year's time.
We are all going to have to make it work. The way a bunch of people made something work at Lexington and Concord. You may remember it. It's called America. But he didn't say anything!
Getting Woody into office brings out Frasier's Machiavellian side, often scheming in his ambitions to earn favour with the common man, though those ambitions scaled back considerably after this.
With my brains and your smile, who knows how high we can go? Congressman, senator. Who knows?
That they stick with the outcome suggests a lot of unintended consequences. I wouldn't worry.
Well, I'm calling your bluff. I'm firing my missiles too, all of them.
It wasn't all selfish. Sam and Frasier continue to seek each other out for advice on all sorts of... oh man. With Sam confronting him on his own issues concerning women, and if maybe there's more going on he has to fix.
No one would want to marry me because, you know, I've had a lot of women in my day.
You're perfectly capable of making a change. You can reinvent Sam Malone when you're ready.
It's a small start this late on, and we see in the sequel show it doesn't entirely take. But the willingness to try was appreciated, his respect for Frasier's opinion getting him to figure out what he wanted his life to be.
I would love to put a stop to this, because I feel like my appetites are out of control. I mean, I hunger for it constantly.
You like Chinese food?
Someday. In one way or another, Frasier's influence was felt, helping everyone at the bar in whatever way he could. Save one.
Say, where's Carla anyway?
Oh, she took a temporary job over in that new bar in Boylston, you know?
That's because I'm really a writer. Or, actuellement, a poetess.
Yeah, well, I for one don't miss her. That little foul-mouthed, fright-wigged rodent.
He might be remembered as the bar know-it-all, but there was more to Cliff Clavin that Frasier was never able to unpack. Maybe because he didn't want to be found dead in his apartment.
Thanks a lot, Doc. And your cowardly desire to live, you broke Ma's trunk.
Behind the brain who brought in celebrity look-alike veggies was a deeply disturbed individual. He'd need his own video.
Look at me.
There's an episode where it seems like he's killed his mother, and nobody questions it.
Been spending a lot of time in the garden lately. Can't get my hands clean. I gotta wash them. Wash them.
A dangerous man. Don't trust him.
Yeah, your common pumpkin was once 600 times the size of the present-day variety.
This energy does get taken to Frasier when Cliff bumps into him years later, alongside multiple returning characters, celebrating they'll never have to see Cliff again.
How'd you find out about this?
I live here. I just came down for some ice.
Nonetheless, showing us what Frasier left behind gives the two casts a chance to mingle, and to tip the hat to everyone who might have been forgotten.
For all the great times we had at Cheers.
Well, you're always there for me, Al.
I'm Phil. Al's been dead for 14 years, you dumb son of a bitch.
Cheers to you, Clavin. Hope you come back to the revival so they can, put you in jail. Sadly, despite his Samaritan efforts, Frasier was finding difficulty getting things in order in his own life, and Lilith was about to drop a bomb.
I know. I'll simply imagine the worst thing you could possibly tell me, and whatever your news is, it will pale by comparison.
I cheated on you.
That was it! That was the worst thing!
It was funny and difficult to watch when Lilith revealed she had been having an affair, and despite talking about it, neither has a supportive answer.
For so long now, I have felt so alone. It seems we can't talk without getting into a fight.
It's not worth throwing it all away on something so empty, meaningless, and unfulfilling.
Actually...
But I don't want to hear it!
It ends with her leaving, and naturally, Frasier responds with real dignity. The ledge incident is a key piece of the Frasier story for fans, not only because it ruined his reputation and made his moving necessary, but because it's constantly brought up later as a prime example of his instability, an incredibly vulnerable moment to exploit. His evil agent BB Glazer even repeats the stunt as a way to get him a better deal with the radio station, probably knowing how he'd respond.
Channel 5, come to mama!
Another demon in human form, what can I say? A lot of demons after this man.
What about me? I care for you. Hell, I love you, man.
Yeah, I said it.
All this did was prove Lilith's concerns, and while he was bitter, he couldn't bring himself to hurt her, or his son.
I actually climbed out on a ledge and wondered if life was worth living. And then I thought of Frederick.
I won't leave you.
Get out of here.
What do you mean?
I can't be happy knowing that you're not.
Thank you, Frasier.
From then on, Frasier becomes a sad single dad, dressing Frederick like a little Niles, as Sam tries to keep him included. And it can be argued the official start of his dating era begins in earnest here, as he gets into some early scrapes.
Can I bring anything? Dessert, maybe?
Oh, no, Dr. Crane. Don't bring dessert. I'll take care of that.
You're gonna get dessert!
The whole thing hides his real feelings. Lilith's leaving was painful, and we see its effect through the season.
Oh, I know she'll be back. You know why? Because I have Frederick, my little trump card. At last, a male is being sexually harassed. Let this be a lesson to us. Whoa, mangoes 2 for $1. You see, that's exactly the kind of boorish behavior I'm talking about.
Overcoming this in any believable way the audience might accept wouldn't be easy, and we're guided to the possibility by re-examining thoughts we assumed he'd left behind.
You really are my friend, aren't you?
Well, of course I am.
Kirstie Alley never appeared on Frasier. It was alleged she cited her belief in Scientology, which disapproves of psychiatry, as the main reason, to which David Lee quipped, "I don't recall asking." This wasn't cut and dry. Lee had helped hire Kirstie, showing no malice when pressed in later interviews, and the erratic Kirstie dithered on the story, stating she loved working with Kelsey, who she considered a great friend, which was reciprocated.
Just a wonderful person. She always made me laugh. I got a little trouble with the law for a while during Cheers. She showed up, you know. She was one of the only ones who really showed up and pitched in to try to get to be supportive, and that was magnificent.
The impression was that they just never had a good idea how to do it, and perhaps that's because their potential feels like it's paid off here.
It started the first day you came into the bar. I heard your sexy, smoky voice. I looked up and I thought, my God, who is that woman?
Really?
It's been proven in scientific journals. People who spend any amount of time with each other do experience some sort of subconscious sexual attraction.
Are you sure?
Do you want me to get the book?
No.
Frasier's interest in Rebecca had certainly started selfishly, but over time it became a proper friendship. And this reversal is consistent with how far Frasier had changed. No longer a cartoon unlovable villain, now a somewhat charming guy, not unlike where Sam started.
For all the years I've known you, you have been married, so I never really took notice.
Well, I'm not married now.
No, you're not.
The actual decision is selfish, though. It's part of the fatigue of long-running shows where the writers feel they have to try a myriad of relationship combinations, regardless of whether or not they work. This doesn't. But it opens the possibilities of his future dating life, to be taken seriously by a variety of women as a leading man, no longer settled.
Damn!
It also fails miserably.
I didn't want you to be alone and depressed on a night like this. So what I did is I brought over some Three Stooges tapes we can watch.
The evening plays out with people assuming he's lonely and interrupting his plans that's happened since, like what, 81 times? And ends with Frasier getting absolutely nowhere.
Rebecca?
It's a key moment. Ironically, the empathy Frasier built in making people care about him sabotages a selfish choice. This was a recurring problem from here on in, his shallow desires coming at the expense of an ethical sense of decency, and put into practice when the situation with Lilith's crazed ex-lover escalates, which he had to help fix.
I felt the hurt. I felt the abandonment. I felt what it's like when a woman tears your entire life apart. See, I got through it. So will you.
It was an overall win, showing Lilith how he'd been hurt and saving the day, yet felt somewhat hollow. Frasier and Rebecca were fine, parting amicably, and soon encouraging her to stop demeaning herself with rich men and go after someone who likes her for who she is.
Now that man seems attractive, decent, and most of all, interested in you.
A pretty uplifting outcome, even if it's, well, sadly temporary.
He dumped her. She's back at the bar.
Working at Cheers again?
No, she's just back at the bar.
But in contrast, the air between him and Lilith had grown sour.
No matter how much you sob, no matter how much you plead, we are not going to Venus.
Oh, Frasier.
It made their last appearance together difficult to accept as a final statement, Lilith noticeably absent for the rest of the series. The practical reason was BB's stage career taking off and wanting to maintain that above her work on TV.
It was a fantastic character with fantastic actors, with the very best director, Jimmy Burrows, with the best writers in television. I enjoyed it, but it was not where my home lies in performance experiences.
It didn't matter. Narratively, it was the end of the road.
Oh, for goodness sakes, Frasier, we've been intimate several times this last month.
I don't want it anyway.
You do too.
I do not.
Do so.
All right, I do.
Well, you're not getting any. Oh, Frasier, isn't it enough that I'm doing it to your mind?
Diane was the woman Frasier wanted, but Lilith was the one he needed. She performed her intended role as a physical version of his conscience, who put voice to his flaws and encouraged his improvement, and most importantly, needed him too. She had always been lonely, and had at last found someone on her level, helped out of her shell to become part of a world she found difficult to connect with. She could let her hair down, be funny, have a family, live a halfway normal life. Sadly, when it came to expressing love, she was compromised.
Is this the one? Is this the one? Is this the one? Is this the one? Is this the one?
Diane and Frasier had been openly affectionate at every turn, only to be a lie, so Lilith's more rational approach may have felt like an antidote.
Frasier, an observation. You are spending way too much time.
Unfortunately, because she found affection difficult, Frasier would lose patience and slip into complacency, not returning affection, making light of her problems, refusing to tell her his secrets, and she worried what that really meant. Hiding something of her own seemed like the only way to retaliate in not wanting to be rejected first, the way he responded only confirming she wasn't being taken seriously.
Perfectly natural for you to be examining your life right now. You're comparing the expectations you had of yourself in the past with what you've actually achieved up to now.
Frasier.
No, wait, let me finish. And how many years have we been married? 7. Perfect time for you to be re-examining our relationship. You're practically a cliché.
That was the tragedy. The writers and actors had done an incredible job in illustrating how this pair of odd characters could live a believable life together. And for as much as Frasier pined for Diane, his romance with Lilith outlasted hers by 6 years. Yet, they had taken the flaws that made them so alike and used it to pull them apart in a way that made sense, mutually destructive, their insecurities taking control. We never see the divorce take place, but these events make it entirely credible.
Hello, you're on the line.
Congratulations, Frasier, you've done it again.
The good news is the spin-off saw Lilith return almost every season. With custody of Frederick to sort and both suffering from isolation, she and Frasier got together in a number of ways, enough that fans consider her an official part of the main cast.
Go away. Congratulations on the successful commingling of your genetic material. I'm nearly done defrosting.
And the turkey?
You're having some fun at my expense, aren't you?
Not much.
She fit in perfectly. Lilith's appearances were always strong in a show attuned specifically to her kind of style, most notably in an amazing episode where she goes to Frasier after a breakup for comfort again, and maybe more.
Oh, baby.
Worried he's getting pulled back into a mistake, his brother intervenes. Oh no. And what results is a farce for the ages.
I just gotta get out of here!
I knew you couldn't stay mad at us.
I'm in a bathrobe, you jackass!
Written by frequent Cheers writer-producers Ken Levine and David Isaacs, this was a chance to air past grievances. The best part that Frasier's argument is, deliberately, full of shit.
This was a passive-aggressive manifestation of your deep resentments toward me. Niles, you were punishing me for my notoriety. You for my successful adjustment after our divorce. It is this shared bond that brought the two of you to your palace of sweet revenge.
While his pain is understandable, he's again overreacted and made himself the biggest victim in the room. The difference now, that Lilith knows how to handle it.
Allow me to rebut. What a crop!
It is not!
It is so! This is yet another example of your complete self-absorption, which is the reason we could not stay together in the first place.
She was wrong in her approach, but her response was dead on, with someone who should have known exactly what she was going through when it came to rejection.
I have never been less self-assured, more in need of validation, both as a person and especially as a woman. Our physical reaction to each other was nothing more than a desperate attempt to reaffirm our own worth.
No one got under his skin like Lilith did. Lilith was as smart as he was. Lilith saw his every trick, his every move. That's kind of the formula that led to the reaction that you were looking for.
And Bebe Neuwirth was way, way sexy.
Admitting their long-held frustrations as part of a psychiatric love triangle in an incredibly funky hotel was the best way to validate their conflict on Cheers to all of us paying attention, and reminding us why we found them so damn interesting. I rewatch this a lot.
We're an odd little family, aren't we?
As brutal as it was, the dynamic changed into something better. Frasier would laugh about the marriage, belittle it in front of family and friends, but behind closed doors, the two were now open books, understanding what they were going through and working together.
Well done, Dr. Sterling.
Well done, Dr. Crane.
Frasier still considered her his best critic, either in real life or in his mind, defending her and deferring to her wisdom.
Speaking on behalf of your subconscious, because you realized the relationship was destined to fail.
And why would that be? Lana could have been perfect for him.
Is that something you just say out of habit now?
And while they'd lost their old feelings and were happy to wish each other well, I think there was a hint of regret, knowing they had something deeper than could be described, and couldn't help but wonder if anyone else would match that. An act that would be almost impossible to follow.
With one hand, the past moves us forward, and with the other, it holds us back.
Goodbye, Lilith.
Goodbye, Frasier.
But what better way to think of Dr. Lilith Sterling Crane? The real Funny Valentine. Love for Frasier was tough.
His standards for himself are so high that he can't live up to the kind of person he wants to be in a relationship. It's not so much that the women are a problem, it's just Frasier has a problem.
He would consistently fail to forge meaningful relationships, coming to accept he'd been creating emotional distance in his life through psychiatry to avoid dealing with his emotions at all.
Psychiatry gives you objectivity. Objectivity gives you emotional distance. Distance makes you feel safe. How's your practice?
I don't have a practice, I have a radio show.
Distance. Any children?
Yes, I have a wonderful son with whom I'm very close.
You live with him?
He lives in Boston.
Distance. with your wife.
My ex-wife. Yes, I know. Distance.
Wasn't she a psychiatrist?
Yes, she was. She happened to be a damn good one, too.
Well, that's a handy choice for someone who'd rather share ideas than emotions.
She happens to be a very warm and loving woman.
This was a character constructed over years of experimentation, and what's gratifying is the follow-up never lost sight of where his problems started, and who revealed them first. Frasier would date many women, some extremely memorable or well-suited to his personality, and played by some of the greats. But none rose to the larger-than-life status of his major partners, written either to form or formed from his identity.
You can't blame anyone in these situations. He can blame you.
If I were a hack Freudian, I guess I'd say they represented different personality archetypes. Nanette, the uncontrollably selfish id, his repressed urges and exhibitionism on legs. Diane, the desperately mediating ego, projecting who he wanted to be and be seen with. And Lilith, the overcorrective superego, not taking any shit. Maybe one of them was only seen briefly, and they failed him in so many ways with their huge personality defects, but they enshrined his too, never fully accepting the truth of what he was getting into, worried they'd leave him, and proved right when they did. He'd then perpetually ruminate, rationalizing any reason, aside any part where he was at fault.
When Diane left you at the altar, why aren't you the guy who enrolled her in every tape book and record club known to mankind?
Yes, but that was different. The pompous witch deserved it.
You know, I used to be married to her. But now I've got this honey.
Never guess who's back.
It's Lilith, isn't it? Where is my beautiful girl?
Doc, it's Robin Colcott.
Good. I wouldn't take that broad back if you paid me.
And so that's applying to every date since. They weren't smart enough, pretty enough, quiet enough, desperate enough, perfect enough, imperfect enough. He invariably found something wrong, never up to whatever standard he chose to set, or able to be honest about his problems without losing them, and this felt like offshoots of what he'd dealt with among the main three, which became how they, as you've seen a few times today, decided to frame it on Frasier in the Don 1 episode, as Frasier undergoes a mental collapse, haunted by the women of his past, dissecting his failing love life.
She tried to kill me once.
Sleeping with his brother is right up there.
Oh, I could see that.
You're all hypocrites!
And you're all whores!
Stop it. He's pitting us against each other in order to avoid the real conflict within himself.
What I love about this is how it specifically used the women of Cheers to represent those struggles, which they had absolutely defined. Yes, some specifics were different, but the reasons for failing were the same, and it took the spectre of their effect to realize he was the one making it difficult. He'd been unable to let go, self-sabotaging in anticipation of failure, or worse, pushing what was never going to work to hold things off as long as possible, concerns projected on everyone since, and the discussion honoured the long journey he'd taken to this moment, where introspection at long last took hold.
You always have us, isn't that right, girl?
All right, wait a minute! That's my problem. You are always there. I have carried you with me throughout every relationship, on every date. How will I ever move forward if I don't put you behind me?
They were gone, but never forgotten. Characters that reminded us of the rich legacy of great writing this all came from, and the tragically funny character they created.
I'm better than I've been in quite some time. Mainly because of one very important thing I learned.
Great! Let's roll.
It wasn't all negative. I think these relationships helped him recognize what was happening to his brother, previously stuck in a one-sided marriage and about to inflict the same on another, not accepting the reality of Daphne, making Frasier step up to offer positive change.
The only thing I am guilty of is loving Daphne, and that's all I've ever done.
From afar. You were never in love with her. You were in love at her. Now you've been given a chance to experience her in a real relationship, and yet for some reason you're resisting it. Rather than see her as she really is, you keep holding on to the fantasy.
This was what made him tolerable to those women to begin with. For all that distance, he remained consistently empathetic, barging through his selfish desires to do the right thing, and while he was unable to save his own marriage, he was at least able to save another.
The best part, Frasier? It wasn't at all like I imagined it.
That's the person Cheers discovered. Frasier was pathetic, pompous, snobby, vain, egocentric, wimpish. In real life, he'd be impossible to deal with. But these facades were made to protect, from day one, a streak of optimism he'd endearingly cling to in the face of failure, helping others, hoping one day to get it right for himself. And it was disturbingly relatable. You know the saying about what doesn't kill you making you stronger, or in this case, helping you see how screwed up you really are.
You're crazy, you're a lovely person, you're a moving, deeply maladjusted, never to be trusted, crazy person. You're dead. Bobby is my hobby and I'm giving it up.
Ted Danson announced he was going to leave after the following season was through, and, regardless of suggestions, nobody wanted to continue without him. By this point, Cheers' popularity was enormous, and they figured if it was going, then it needed to go out in an equally huge way. That's exactly what happened when plans were made to turn it into an hour-long finale, allowing the execs to sell a ton of ad space, and featuring a special post-show celebration filmed live at the location of the exterior shots, the Bull and Finch pub. The audience joined by the cast, who had already celebrated quite a bit.
Based on your,
Krusty, you know, you are my best friend, but we all need to say this to you.
Yes.
You're stupid!
Critics called this a train wreck. I call it art.
Now this is what a substitute teacher has to go through.
The writers gave it their best shot and tried to arrange for some real closure, knowing only one person could come back to make that happen.
Diane Chambers, the heart held hostage.
And thank you, cable television, for allowing those of us who eschew the pap and pablum of commercial television to...
I tell you, that Kim Alexis is hot.
have my doubts if
Look
there would ever be...
to her right.
Diane's return centers mostly on Sam, but it was naturally going to pull in Frasier. How could it not? This was before their upcoming reunion and after the pain of what would blossom into divorce, so it makes sense that Frasier's final words to her on Cheers reflect someone at the end of his rope, ready to touch grass in another state.
There's absolutely nothing here anymore. I'm over you. You could be ugly and gnarled and toothless without that shining hair, those dancing eyes, these graceful, supple limbs. Thank God I'm free.
Frasier, you're hurting me.
Well, you never hurt me, did you? Anyway, good to see you.
I think it displays why she couldn't have stayed. The situation on set couldn't have been more positive. Shelley was happy to be there, and everyone had a good time. But Diane remained on the outside of the group, her interest not to reconnect with the bar, but to elevate Sam from it, resulting in an ugly outcome.
The two of you had a relationship whose best moments were full of anguish and self-loathing.
I need more than this. You know, you should need more than this. I am not your mother. This is not your home.
I'm sorry, everyone. This is the best for Sam, believe me.
Sam and Diane's romance wasn't healthy. She meant well, and their chemistry was still crazy, but it was at the expense of what they each wanted beyond that, both more likely to find happiness apart, evidenced by how much Diane had achieved on her own. She'd found her self-respect. Sam was still searching. That things end on such an anticlimax is emblematic of the disappointing reality Cheers was able to take the characters away from, acknowledging what the relationship was from the start. Like Frasier, it was time to move on.
You know.
Yes. I think we both know.
Perhaps it would seem like things ended badly for Sam, unable to find out what it was that fulfilled him, but the real ending had yet to play out. All of this was filmed separately to the final live performance. Two things saved for the last ever taping sessions. The first was for an earlier episode, admitting not everything about Sam, or Ted Danson, was real.
All this time, the great Sam Malone's hair is nothing but a fraud.
Hey, at least I didn't sleep with Paul.
But the last was something the writers knew should be the final experience.
Pull out those smokes, Sam. Let's fumigate the place.
The audience and extended crew was called in to witness the gang taking a moment to enjoy each other's company. Each got a chance to express their feelings, the crowd dead silent as they mused on life after Cheers, in a word-perfect single take. Except one member of the cast, who apparently found his speech difficult to finish.
Time goes by so fast. People move in and out of your life. You must never miss an opportunity to tell these people how much they mean to you. Well,
Frasier began as someone on the outside. He was an antagonist, ready to treat these folks as one bump on the road in his pursuit of Diane, only to discover they liked his company. In joining them, breaking bread with people he'd normally have nothing to do with, he became someone else, those emerging qualities put to use as he helped with others' problems, while realizing he had so many of his own to face up to. Over 9 seasons, this bit player prop was now totally integrated with the rest of the cast of an incredibly popular show, offering his own style of comedy, his own level of drama, changing their minds. He'd been a part of what kept Cheers an ongoing success, but never forgot that Cheers put him there to begin with. These were the people who had brought him forward, who he couldn't help but get close to, who he'd have to continue without.
thanks for staying, guys. Same to you.
Frasier is my favourite show, with a strong finale, but nothing it did ever came close to the final scene of Cheers.
You can never be unfaithful to your one true love. Who is that? Think about it, Sam.
Nothing ever could.
Well, I tell you, I'm the luckiest son of a bitch on earth. Sorry, we're closed.
Frasier, NBC this fall.
Me again, Dr. Frasier Crane, NBC staff psychiatrist, with a brief analysis of Cheers. Let's start with Sam, a sex-starved bartender who fell in love with an intellectual dilettante barmaid, who eventually left him for... Oh, for God's sake, you know the story. The show's on 3 times a day in 112 languages. Let's move on, shall we?
Originally, there wasn't going to be a spin-off. When an audience was polled for which character they wanted to return, Frasier was dead last, which suited Grammer fine, hoping it would be possible to develop a new show for Paramount. There were a few ideas running around, like following the life of a bedridden newspaper tycoon, oh joy, but the poll didn't reflect the whole truth.
Kelsey and I had a long relationship, and said very simply, Kelsey, do you want to hit a home run, or do you want to hit a single?
The executives convinced him to come back to the character, and he agreed, with a couple of small caveats.
No kids, no dogs, no wives. BB came back and did a couple of shows for us, but that was the right stuff. The dog I lost on, the kid I lost on, it's okay.
And thus, Frasier got his own sitcom. The built-in audience didn't hurt its chances, nor did adding a dog, but there was so much else they got right from the first episode. Rather than alienate the audience with its razor-sharp dialogue, intense literary references, and upper-class leads, audiences enjoyed not being condescended to or patronized by a show that recognized Frasier, while living an above-average experience, had hilariously average goals. A new amazing cast and direction from downtown Boston to uptown Seattle sustained well into the millennium, and that wouldn't have been possible to build without the foundations laid by Cheers, figuratively and literally.
He's on the same stage we were on. He didn't have to move. He didn't have to move his dressing room.
Everything about the character that worked had been discovered through years of training and experimentation, as many artists, under James Burrows and the Charles brothers, forged ahead using whatever they'd learned or been left with, proving their worth through a broad set of accessible voices, and now perfecting the one made accessible through them. He went from getting hate mail to becoming an icon, because the people behind him saw what he was capable of and persevered. The world has changed in how these things are made, but it doesn't mean you can't turn something around and find the way into an idea's success. You just need the chance to try. There's one other thing. Whenever I make these, I go in with an idea of what I want to say. Oh, let's go back to revisit Cheers and talk about all the Frasier stuff. Point out the connection, see if he made it better, because, you know, I'm biased. He's my favourite character. I want to see if he's the same guy. It's sort of true. Frasier was a part of what made an already great sitcom last, adding dimension to characters, introducing others, and gave everyone a chance to expand on their problems. Except Cliff. Kinda messed up there. It was exciting to visit Frasier when he was young and everything seemed possible, offering Cheers a sensibility he would perfect on his own fantastic spin-off. But, and I mean nothing bad by this, going back to Frasier, something was gone.
All this work just to find out that I have a fear of rejection?
That's right.
So I'm alone? Because I'm afraid to be alone?
From the start, Frasier was alone. It was like a piece of himself was missing, trying to find it through his work or people he thought he was most like, constantly rejected. But once, there was a place he could go, where others felt the same, where Cliff talked and Norm drank, where Woody tried and Carla did, where Rebecca had a shoulder to cry on, and Lilith was able to laugh, where Diane tried to start her life, where Sam tried to find one, where everyone kept Coach in the loop. They were all lonely, and through each other's company, they created an unconventional family to avoid the uncomfortable changes of their real lives. Yet, they also allowed Frasier to grow. It was the one place in the world where that fussy, well-to-do doctor could open up and explore what he wanted to be. And we got to be a part of that, watching others think of him differently, accepted at last, by us as well as them. From great comedic highs to genuinely moving lows, it was entirely character building, and when it was done, it made sense why he would find it so hard to say goodbye.
Look at me.
In his new life, Frasier would continue to grow and change, to show more of what we knew he was capable of. But even surrounded by friends and family, he never found that missing piece. Try as he might, the disappointments and rejections continued, tempted to push everyone away, always on call, but never for a cure. Somehow, for all that positive change, he still seemed endlessly alone. But at least at Cheers, he never had to be. And I realised what I hoped would be true. Frasier was always my guy.
You wanna go where people know your troubles are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows your name.
Thank you for watching. Gosh, that's a lot of Frasier. If you've made it this far, I'd like to extend those thanks to my wonderful patrons for supporting me so I could complete this video. I know it ended up being a very extended process after having promised it quite a while ago, but I hope what we got here was pretty good. So to all of them, again, huge thanks for letting me get this done. I couldn't have done it without you. The thumbnail was created by the wonderful artist Joe Chouinard, who you might recognise from the brilliant Frasier Meets Columbo comic. He does fantastic work, so please go and support him at all the links provided in the description. I'm beyond thrilled to be associated with that. I mean, look at this! That's really good. Last but not least, a lot of the information that you've seen today came from the archives of previously mentioned Cheers and Frasier writer-producer Ken Levine, who hosts the podcast Hollywood and Levine, that I've become a little addicted to while making this. Amazing insights into working as a comedy writer, as well as interviews with many different celebrities and behind-the-scenes individuals that I highly recommend seeking out, especially the audition story for Big Wave Dave's. That one's pretty good. That's all I got for now. If you liked this and my voice, then I do other videos that you can click. And hopefully I'll see you all in the next one reasonably soon. Gotta keep the mystery alive, I guess.
Frasier, straighten him out. What happens to old dead skin?
Apparently it sits on bar stools and drinks beer all day.